Cheers. It is Thursday, December 13th, 2018. This is your Cup of Jones. The first time I think I've got that intro right in a very long time. So it's not jazz completely gone from Cup of Jones. It's just gone from the middle part of Cup of Jones. You still get the jazz at the beginning, and you get the jazz at the end. I'm so excited about that. I stopped the video. I manually stopped it. I was like, stop, go back to the beginning. And then I went to the other scene, and then when I go back to the first one, now it remembers to go back to the very beginning. So I'm so excited for lots of things here at Easy Allies. No more excited than the fact that that intro worked. Cheers to you all. Cup of Jones, the final live Cup of Jones of 2018. We made it. A crazy year for the world, a crazy year for video games, a year that I am nervous to be finishing. I'm excited to be finishing. I'm all over the place. I mentioned in the description for this episode that it's crazy that everything feels like it's slowing down at Easy Allies and a Cup of Jones because we're moving into the holidays. We're all going on vacation, but kind of ramping up also at the same time because we're moving into the studio. And let's start there. Well, first of all, I forgot the audio for last week's Cup of Jones. Cheers, everybody. Take a silent sip. I forget sometimes. I think I'm like 3 out of 4, I think, for the month. 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 5 on average for the audio on Cup of Jones. Sometimes I skip it when I do that. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't do audio. I'll do it for the next episode. Last week's was a lot of studio information. I think that's very pertinent to our community, to people here at Easy A. And so I will be posting that later today with the other audio versions. You get 2 audio versions back to back. So if you want to catch up on last week's episode, or at least the beginning audio-wise, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, oh, I missed last week's, cool. It's good to know that that is up. So that'll go up before the other. Apologies for skipping that. Like I always do, it's always some dumb excuse. Sometimes I can tell you, sometimes I can't. In this case, it's all the studio stuff. My brain was in another place. I have written the review for Just Cause 4. I submitted it to Bloodworth. Bloodworth approved, sent it back, and I just have to cut the video, which I will do today or tomorrow. And I'm meeting with, so studio stuff, I'm meeting with our set designer right after this episode is over. I'm heading over to the office. I'm showing them the 2 spaces that we intend to build a quote-unquote set on, discuss how much each of those individual elements are going to cost. And here's basically where we are currently out with the studio, and it's driving me crazy because a lot of it is under my control, but there's going to be a very difficult process coming up, and that is Ian Hank has basically put together his budget for our lights, our sets, and I'm not sets specifically, but like not the desk or any of the stuff in the background of the stage space or the streaming space. There are a couple of things that we want to build in. There's also construction, but we'll get to that in a second. So it's basically all of our production equipment, what new cameras we want to get, what new lights we want to get, anything that we want to get that'll help connect both of those stages together, possibly give us a lot of fun interactivity. Don't want to make a lot of promises in that regard because we don't know specifically what that's going to cost and how much money we're going to have to spend on that stuff. So it's Ian's budget. My budget is very practical. It's like a bunch, completely separate items, trash cans, a refrigerator, desks, shelves, stuff like that. And then there's going to be, after today, our set designer's budget. And that's going to be what are good televisions to buy if we want to have monitors on stage. How big should those monitors be? How expensive will, very complicated elements be to add to the set? Is there a way that we can simplify that? Is there a way that we can set up lights potentially that are a part of the set, so because we're not sure how wide the cameras are going to be because we haven't got cameras in there yet. And so we're going to have these 3 budgets at the end of today. And then we have to look at all of those, and for the end of 2018, spend as much money as we possibly can on getting all of this stuff ready so that we can hit the ground running in 2019 when all this stuff is delivered and start building it, setting everything up. And it's tough because you can't just cross an item off of any of those lists because those items are connected to other things. So there's equipment that we are considering getting for the control room, but if we don't get one piece of equipment, then there's no point in getting these other pieces of equipment. And so it's not a matter of, again, just clicking boxes and unchecking things, but trying to figure out different types of budgets that we could do and then deciding at the end of the day to go with one of those. And Ian's already on vacation, so he's doing a lot of this while traveling and phoning in, from the road. And I need to go to the studio as much as I possibly can, meet with people. We've met with internet people. We have set some things up at the studio, and I brought some things in. I'm going to be bringing some more boxes in today of stuff that's just pure Easy A. A lot of those Hoag's Law sweaters, you know, those take up a lot of space. You got to get those in the studio. And very excited, but very nervous. It's clear that there's more things. We want to spend more money than we have. There's no question about that. There's a lot of things that we want that I don't know if we're going to have right away. We actually have 2 separate people that asked us if we're going to be doing a fundraiser for the studio. I'll get to that in a second. You know, not eager in taking out a loan. Hoag is probably like, yeah, no, no loans. I get the delay, so I'm like, why is Hoag commenting? Oh, right. So yeah, it's tricky because we want that launch obviously to be as big as it can possibly be, and the question is investing in what rooms over other rooms, accepting what things we're going to be able to buy when we first move in and what things are goals down the road that we can communicate. And if there's a way to future-proof our tech so that if we want to buy another piece of hardware down the road, we don't have to like completely unplug everything and set that back up, that we kind of know what our goals are for the future so that we can make space for them. Lots to think about. That's currently where we are with the studio. And hopefully I'll do a little, again, this is the last live Cup of Jones, but I will be doing other Cup of Joneses for the month. I'll be recording them. Honestly, I think it's like the 28th or the 30th or something is the last Thursday of the month. That might be a text post. I don't know. I know I will definitely do one recorded episode that I will put up next week that I was thinking about doing this week, but there's a lot of personal questions, a lot of stuff to get through. But I just kind of wanted to talk in general about personally what it means to Jones, what it means to me to get that studio. I think it's nice while everyone is on vacation to have a non-callback, non-question Cup of Jones. And the other thing is, you know, there's not going to be a lot of live updates over the holidays. It's not going to be a lot happening with Easy Allies in general over the holidays anyway. So you might just get a couple of updates from me, but we will kick it off on the 3rd, which I think is the first Thursday of 2019. I will definitely be back and live, and we will hang around. Everybody's ready to give us money. I love it. And yeah, there we go. We have a new trailer. This is very exciting. Aside from the studio, I'm very excited about our Patreon right now. I'm very excited about our YouTube channel. We have a lot of really fun stuff coming up at the end of the year. Blood kind of hinted at one of those things in the podcast if you haven't checked it out yet, but Ian has, there's a very, very fun episode of Mandatory Update coming up, of Easy Update coming up, excuse me. I haven't made that snafu in a long time. And we put up a trailer for Mysterious Monsters, which is our 55K goal, a game show hosted by Michael Huber. And this is very fun because there are 2 elements to this. We've been getting a lot of feedback, but one of the things that we haven't necessarily nailed 100% during the history of Easy Allies is announcing things. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback over the years over what goes up on Patreon versus what is announced here on Cup of Jones versus what is, you know, announced everywhere, what people get for $1 here on patreon.com/Easy Allies versus what people get, you know, for free on YouTube. And so we decided to do like a 2-tier announcement for Mysterious Monsters. So on our group stream Tuesday night, we had we had Jason and Ian and Huber that are on camera basically talking about the show, giving you a quick rundown of how it works, showing you a little bit of the temp graphics that we're using. And then if you are for all of you, $1 patrons of Easy Allies, you can actually watch a sit-down test that we did of the technology that I have not watched, but I was there. I was one of the contestants. There was a question about the food groups that I failed spectacularly if you want to see that. I was very tired. I get very stressed out in any sort of quiz situation because in a lot of ways, it's not the way my brain works. I can remember lines from movies. That's about it. But when it comes to like, you know, food trivia, like not good. But it's fun because it's like, as more details are coming out about the show, it's like Jeopardy, but like an RPG. It was really fun to play. And one of the feedbacks that we have, one of the questions that we have is there's basically too many rules. It's very complicated. And we definitely trimmed a lot back during that session, and we're streamlining, you know, all of the elements that we'll need to pull that show off. And it's going to be fun because it's still a goal. It's something that we want to aspire to, but it's something that we wouldn't be able to do at the drop of a hat. So if we hit that 50K goal, it would take us a while to put all of that together. So it's fun to have you know, it's definitely much more conceived, I think, than a lot of the previous goals that we've had as far as being ready to go. And we're looking forward to doing more with Mysterious Monsters in the future, even before we hit that 55K goal, to show you how the show is coming along, especially the tech and sets and stuff like that we'll have available to us. It's just a question of actually bringing in guests, setting aside like a full day or two to shoot a bunch of episodes to then run those episodes, you know, in the months to follow, that we would actually need that additional funding to open that up in our schedule, especially following moving into the studio, because we're going to have a lot of other things that are exciting, especially at the beginning of the year, Hall of Greats, Goaty, stuff like that we're going to want to do in the studio. But if all of you decide in the very early months of 2019 that it is time for that game show, then we can get up there, hit that 55K goal. We are breaking record numbers. We're well above 50K right now, and we are currently enjoying our highest patron count of all time. Bloodworth put up a graph of our patron level in the history of Easy Allies, and I wish I had it in front of me. I really should post it if this is a financial meeting. Apologies for not having that. We should definitely do a big, boring, you know, spreadsheet episode of Cup of Jones one of these days. But it's great. It just kind of goes up and then dips and then just takes off this year. This has really been a great year for our Patreon. And so before I actually get into questions, just thank you for all of that. So exciting things coming to our channel. Exciting stuff before the end of the month. There was a new episode of Fiasconauts that I am in called A Long Way to Tipperary that Ben, right after we turned off the camera, said was one of the weirdest Fiasconauts he's ever been involved in. I don't know if it was one of the weirdest I've ever been involved in, but definitely it was a test in not having any idea how it was going to go. One of the fascinating things about Fiasconauts that informs me as a performer and a writer is having an idea, wanting to put it into place, and then having another character just completely destroy it. And you're like, oh, that person's dead now. Or, oh, it's the next day. Okay, I can't do that scene that I wanted to do. We have 2 more episodes of Fantasy 15. Ian's episode went up last week, I believe. The next episode goes up on Monday. I had a fun idea for a new exclusive show that we can do today that I'm excited to pitch to the rest of the allies. We, as usual, have about, you know, a 2 or 3 month break in between exclusive shows. Hopefully we can shorten that in the year of 2019. But we will have a new exclusive show for you soon. But you can also get, for this month, you know, spoiler modes and everything else, Fancy 15, but also that behind-the-scenes look at Mysterious Monsters. So let us know what you think of the show. That show is, oh, you can check it out on Graphtreon. There we go. There you go. Blood put it in. See, we did it. Multimedia. If you're watching this later, apologies. Blood put that in the comments. The link. You can check it out on Graphtreon. There we go. And worth noting that there's a major criticism coming up that I'm excited to read of our top 10 characters that don't deserve to be in Smash Brothers countdown that recently went up. It went up early because we wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Obviously, everyone is playing Smash right now, and so we wanted to get that list up. And it's getting very good traction. It is making people very upset. That is kind of the nature of countdowns. Countdowns have been highly controversial here at EC Allies since we started. And so, just like I said, I want the notes back on Mysterious Monsters. It's good to have feedback from people. It's good to see what lists resonate with people. In a good way in terms of traffic, in a good way in terms of exposure. Exposure is one of the big concerns coming up in today's questions. But at the same time, people get very agitated. People, yeah. On one hand, you want to do countdowns right. On the other hand, you know that everyone's going to be upset about countdowns no matter what. So, there we go. Oh, and also one final last little fun budget item is our remodeling. We're going to hire a subcontractor to come in and knock some holes in the walls of our studio. That's a big approval process. And so hopefully we get that budget ironed out as soon as possible. So yeah, lots of waiting, but lots of planning at the same time. And I'll be in the studio later today, which makes me happy. That always puts a smile on my face walking down that hallway, going into all those rooms. Cool. All right. Brandon K. Gann, and the first question of feedback for business, which is common. Brandon is there. He is locked and loaded, ready with his question. When going over the studio's particulars, I got a wonderful mental picture of what it'd look like, but while touching on the pros and cons of the place, I wondered, now that EZA has a studio, will you continue to look for another space that may be better? I do not mean immediately finding a new space and moving in like a couple of months, but more in the vein of being in this studio for about a year and starting looking for something potentially better. Or is having 6 rooms, each with their own unique purpose, too much of a benefit, not to go ahead and declare it as the permanent home for Easy Allies? We will be there for around 3 years. That's the extent of our lease. And it would not behoove us financially to move out before then. But yeah, we'll always, everyone that I know that's in a studio or has an access to a space is always thinking about, the next opportunity. And that's the thing about this studio search, has been really expanding our minds in terms of like, what could Easy Allies be? Like, could we have a space that is modular, that we can move in walls and set pieces, everything's on wheels. And so we're in kind of a big warehouse, and like everything we shoot is all in one direction. And then when we're not using it, it all just kind of goes to the side, set pieces and furniture and costumes and stuff like that? Or would it make more sense to be in like an office environment? Or would it make more sense to be in a recording studio? It was the first place we put an offer on, was some place where a lot of like albums were produced, where music is typically played. So it was very soundproofed, and it was in a great location, but a lot smaller than the place that we ended up getting. And so all of those possibilities of how we could produce Easy Allies are still in our heads. And the other thing to consider that would be very exciting is, in the future, even if we, get into the 60, 70K, tier on our Patreon and have a higher budget, but still have access to our studio and are still very happy in our studio, that opens up other possibilities of other places that we can shoot. We can rent studio space to shoot a particular show. We can do more stuff on location. We can travel more. And so there are other places, fun places you could see us do stuff and have our home base of operations still be our current studio. Megan Leinart, I have the most important studio question for you. You're going to get today. Does it have a kitchen? It does not have a kitchen, but any of those rooms can become a kitchen. We're going to have a green room. There's going to be a fridge in there and snacks. There will not be running water in there. Running water is only available in our bathroom, but we will have a snack room. Daniel Garza Andrade, how do you feel about the security at the studio? Are you going to leave consoles there? Heck yeah, we're leaving consoles there. We're going to leave a lot of stuff there. Security at the studio is great. There is a keypad, which we can create our own key numbers at the front door. We have a security thing right when you walk in that scans people when you come in. We have security cameras outside the building. The owner is very great with security, and so a lot of that stuff is built into the building itself and is available to all of the people. Not only that work there, but people also on the block, because the cameras point 2 ways down the street. And we have a lot of security stuff that we haven't set up, and then also the 6 individual rooms all have their own locks, and are all big metal doors. And so even if you somehow were able to get into the space and the alarm didn't go off and you go through all of those and you weren't caught on camera, like all of those various steps, you wouldn't be able to get into any of the rooms because they'd all be individually locked if none of us are there. So, and all of the allies will have access to all the keys, and that's it. So we will, if a camera goes missing, we'll know that it was Mike Huber and we'll have him on camera. Ibrahim Sozer, Sifted has Patreon integration on their website, which is why I said it. Maybe ask Brent how much it would cost. So Ebo Show asked if we could have Patreon and Twitch and all different website integration into our website, which is something that we've talked about, which would be great if our website identified you as a Patreon and then gave you access to additional things, or maybe the website looked different if you logged in and were logged in via Patreon. I didn't know that functionality existed, and it's funny that you brought that up, Ebo Show, because I actually went to had a party at our house that Brent Phillips was at last week. And he showed up and was like, oh, by the way, I watched Cup of Jones, and you could totally do that with Patreon. And so Brent is aware that there are changes we want to make to the website. But again, these are things that I think I've said this a billion times before, sorry to be a broken record, would have a small percentage of improvement to our company as a whole, are kind of a luxury at this point. And hopefully that's a luxury we can afford someday, because I would love that. I love websites. I miss building websites. We built GameTrailers.com back in the day. Every other version of GameTrailers.com after like 3.0, I had nothing to do with. I wasn't involved with at all. So all of those, I know that's a safe thing to say because those were all the versions that didn't work very well. But had nothing to do with me, just had to do with the amount of money that they have, the time that they had, the resources that they had to troubleshoot that stuff. But I miss building website functionality. I miss having people have a fun home and tools to deal with. I've always been really jealous of Giant Bomb and the cool stuff that they set up through their website. So I want it. It's on the list. There's a lot of things I want. I wish we had all the money in the world. Matthew Weinstein, if you're able to follow these things, do you often see new patrons join directly after an event like a group stream or a betting special? Are these more based on what content is offered for patrons at the moment, or is it completely random? We definitely see those things. We see those around big events, obviously E3. We also see those when we do something like this Mysterious Monsters announcement, where we point, there's a direct arrow to Patreon. Like, we put up a video saying, we did a thing, spoiler modes. We've noticed a lot of traction on those when, maybe not a lot, but it is working, where we'll put up a video and say, hey, this is the intro to a spoiler mode that is now available for $1 patrons at patreon.com/easyallies. If you want to go check that stuff out. I'm not going to give any of you the spiel because you have given us at least $1 on patreon.com. Christopher Peterson, is there a possibility we could see an Easy Allies daily podcast each and every weekday that runs us through the nerdy news we need to know about? I'd love a daily show of Kyle Jones and 1 or 2 rotating hosts from the other allies. Bless you for having Kyle and myself be the hosts. I'm sure this would be a crap ton of work, but think of all the smiles you'd make. Think of all the smiles you make is a low blow for a show pitch. Because yes, of course, I love giving smiles. I want to give smiles. I want people, especially in this holiday season, to be smiling. And that does sound fun. I will tell you the ally that is most excited about that prospect, and that is Michael Huber. Michael Huber is a big fan of the Kind of Funny Games, not the Shame Games Showcase, Kind of Funny Games Daily, and has long pitched the possibility of doing something like that. I'm not going to rule that out with the studio. I will rule out that the mere concept of thinking of doing that, the thought of that concept makes all of us exhausted immediately. You know, just I get 3 bags under my eyes. For Patreon growth, I'd consider it a lot, says Bloodworth. Sorry, not sure what that's an answer to. It would be great, and I would like to do. I do want to do more streams. I do want to have something else annual, something else, not annual, but something else every week. I don't know about daily, but because I think one of the things is the people who committed to that show at Kind of Funny, the people who do the daily stuff, are very committed to it. And we are also very committed to reviews that we've been doing. Because I missed the embargo in Just Cause 4, I gave myself a little bit of slack on, wrapping that review up. That's taken me almost 2 weeks now, which is inexcusable for a franchise like Just Cause. But the idea of all of us committing to something that we could do every day, given that, so many things change with events that we're doing, with reviews, with events in the industry, Comic-Con and E3 and stuff like that, it would be a hard thing to commit to, hard thing to promise. And I certainly would not want to be involved if I'm doing Cup of Jones. I don't want to then do another Cup of Jones-ish show on top of that. John White. Just curious about the security at the new space. Will you need to add any kind of security system or cameras? Nope. Are you also covered by standard renter's insurance, or do you need a special policy? We do have a policy. Our owner has their own policy, and we all have policies. We're policed out. Tony Knox, now that the studio is solidified, can you guys do a fundraiser for the soundproofing and studio creation? I'm sure it would be significantly easier to do that before the studio is filled with your stuff than it would be once you've moved in. After being in there for a while, we have noticed it does get a little noisy, and we are definitely going to have to soundproof. And that is something that has upped the budget. That's also kind of why I'm kind of, pulling my hair back and scratching my head a little bit in terms of this budget, in terms of not, obviously we're not going to get everything that we want. And there's some of those things are going to have to wait for the future. I don't know if we necessarily want to do a fundraiser just yet. We might want to do that in the future. I think we have to have a clear idea, because we talked about our previous fundraiser was Better Stuff before E3, and there was a very specific pitch as far as what is this multi-cam setup that you see now with the podcast, that you see now with some of the events that we do. And it was that idea to, and it made something like Ian's Western possible because we had multiple cameras. We were able to set up all the cameras and shoot a scene with multiple cameras running at once, so we didn't have to do the scene over and over and over again. And so that has improved a lot of the different shows that we've done in a very specific way, with E3 kind of as the hub of the pitch. And so I would want the fundraiser not to just be like, woof, that studio thing took a while, give us money. Like, I want it to be an idea that you're like, I can see what they're looking for, and I can see directly, now that I've seen this studio space, how that can make things better. And something's going to be in that group. I don't know what that is. Something's going to be in that tier of, just like we were talking about with the website, we talk about with merchandise, we talk about possibly rebranding shows. Like, there's a lot of dream goals, a lot of things that, would cost a lot more than we're willing to spend right now, and we could potentially work up to, along with something else that I haven't particularly said yet that we are interested in doing a fundraiser for at the beginning of 2019. January looks so stacked. January is probably not the smart time to do it. It is related to the year of 2019, so I would like to do that as early as possible. Could be the beginning of February. But we do have fundraiser ideas. We have saved up a lot. I really want to show that we took a while to get the studio. It took a long time, and a lot of people still supported us, still kept us above 50K in that time without getting a lot of updates on the studio, without seeing a lot of results, because a lot of that stuff was happening behind the scenes. For those people that supported us for all that time, I want to deliver a studio space that hopefully meets their expectations and maybe shows the potential of things that we can do in the future. So I don't want to immediately jump into that studio and then immediately come back and ask for money from people who have given us, $4,000, $5,000 ahead of what we promised, essentially, on this Patreon. So I want to take the money that we saved and see what we can do with it, and then we'll consider in the future if it's worth it, testing people's wallets and seeing if they're willing to jump in on a fundraiser. Lots of things to fundraise, including that thing I haven't mentioned yet. What could that be? Blade Casper, I would love to see you collaborate with Pat Contry, aka Pat the NES Punk. I love Pat. I've met him like once, I think, but we talked a lot online. He has a podcast where he talks to people in the video game YouTube scene. I am aware. I have commented this to him and he seems to be into it. I totally understand if this doesn't end up happening, but I had to mention it just in case. Brad Ellis was in the studio. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but he was standing in a doorway and he looked at me when we were in the studio and he was like, Jones, we got to get new guests in the studio. And I was like, Brad, yes, let's do it. And so I'm actually already talking to some people at the Game Awards. It was really fun walking around and talking to people. And they were like, didn't you get a studio? I'm like, yes, I did. Wink, wink. Here's my card. So I want to actually not only do a lot of that stuff, but take time away from maybe other things that I'm doing. That Fiasconauts episode is fun, but it may be time for me to retire, maybe only do like 1 or 2 of those a year, because I really want to start focusing on content creator relations, other companies out there, other possible places, other people, communities that could learn about Easy Allies and ways that we could scratch their back to and be like, hey, if you are coming into town, because right now, you know, we've been open to collaborations. We have done collaborations, fun collaborations already recorded and coming up in the future. But a lot of times people are like, hey, I'm going to be in town. It's like, we're doing something that day. And if it's like, oh, we're shooting something that day, you can still come in the studio. We can shoot in the streaming room. Oh, we have 2 shoots going that day. You can still come in the studio. You can still come in the studio and see the studio, and I'll take a picture with you, or we'll record a video on my phone or whatever. We have 4 other rooms that, as long as we're quiet, you know, while things are being recorded, it's not that big of a deal. And so if we're shooting something here, just don't come to my house. You know, if the garage is rocking, don't come knocking. That one. And that'll go away. And so, yeah, I definitely want to, but keep the recommendations coming of people that you want to see us work with, because and a lot of people obviously have done that work on our behalf and have reached out to people via social media, and I always appreciate that as well. Anthony O'Cowan, it's been a while since I've written to one of these, and I'm sad that it has to be regarding another top 10 list. Here we go. But the top 10 characters who don't deserve to be in Smash list is at best a joke for people who are already fans of you guys, and at worst could be a turnoff to new fans. I'm aware that the list is being taken in good fun, and I was fully aware of what I was getting into, but I still came out of this with a bad taste in my mouth. Also, like, half that list is way more deserving than Fire Emblem Clone number 6, but that's nitpicking choices, and I don't want to do that again. Even though he just did it. But I do that too. A big thing to remember is that every video will be someone's first. A viewer watching this as their introduction to Easy Allies will either get a poor first impression of the channel, or one that generally doesn't match the tone of the channel at large. Either way, this may cost a prospective viewer who will either want to see more of the same or do not wish to see more content as negative on games they like. It's disappointing to me that a series that to this point has been about exalting the best virtues of video games has an entry that, quite frankly, displays the worst tendencies of the people playing the game. Fans complaining about X person getting or not getting into the fighting game they enjoy has been an embarrassing black mark on gaming. Just look at the Waluigi kerfuffle this year when he was revealed as an assist trophy. I hope you can do better in the future. This could be possibly editorial length. And Anthony, thank you very much for your critique. As I said, the countdown is a hot potato. It's something that is probably going to be our most controversial show, but shouldn't it be, right? You know, like, it should be something that we get a lot, that gets people very heated, that we're not expecting to go into those comments and having everybody throw us hearts and rainbows. So that is expected. And I think the biggest thing from this is not necessarily that we shouldn't have done that, but I think one of the biggest things that I take from your comment is the question of tone. And that's one thing that is very hard for us to know confidently all the time. How something that we create is going to be perceived by our audience. Sometimes we don't know exactly how it's going to be perceived, and so we're kind of willing to accept all different parameters of it. You know, we've done some things lately that are like, you know, some of the things we say on Opinion Yell, we're like, how's that going to come across? You know, it's like, I didn't mean that. You know, we're like, Opinion Yell is supposed to kind of make fun of the general chaotic discourse on the internet, and it's kind of like the point of the show, but at the same time, that could be somebody's first entry into Easy Allies. I'm like, oh my God, these guys yell all the time. And so I think it's not a matter of there's acceptable losses sometimes when we know something is going to be viewed by somebody and perceived poorly. But at the same time, we just want to be prepared for those things. We want to, you know, I never want somebody to look at a video. And those are the biggest things that stuck with me at Easy Allies throughout the years, are when somebody said, I feel this way about something, and it's not, I knew you're going to feel that way and I feel bad about it, but we knew that was going to happen and let's just move on. It's, wow, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think that was going to be your perspective. And everything that you're saying to me, Anthony, is yes, this is a hot button issue for Smash fans. Yeah, I guess the discourse around it can get fairly toxic, but maybe that hasn't been my experience in reading all that stuff in terms of like compared to other issues, I guess, that are affecting our industry that, you know, people can take a little more personally than that. Because kind of everybody's got their opinion. They even kind of made fun of that. You know, Reggie kind of pokes fun at that. They even poked fun at that at the Game Awards. And so I think getting back to the question of tone, this was not a list that we thought like, hey, this is going to make a lot of downloads. This is going to bring a lot of views to downloads. I keep saying downloads back from the old GT days. Nobody downloads anything anymore. Nobody downloads video unless they're editing with it. But that's not true. Very few people do. We didn't do it just to get the views. We did it because we have a huge list of potential countdowns that we can do. And when we have countdown meetings, we just read through all of them until someone's like, we should do that. And then the rest of us think, should we do that? Do I want to do that? Do I have any ideas for what that could potentially be? And when we do, when everybody's on board, you can just feel it naturally happen. Like we've had countdowns that we think would be cool, and we're like, yeah, let's do that. And we think about it for 10 minutes. We're like, either I'm just not comfortable with this, or I can't think of any potential entries. And as you can imagine, everyone had their opinions. I tried to get Rob off that list, but Huber was not having it. Obviously, Kyle wrote number 10. Mine was Dr. Mario because it's like the only character in there. It's like if Donkey Kong put on a hat and then was like a different character. It's like, why does this one character get to wear a different outfit? And I think that's like a lot of the like Dark Samus and Dark Pit and like, okay, you know, like it's a fun costume idea, but like a whole new character, given that there's like so many Nintendo characters that have not made it into this. It took this long to get to King K. Rool, but there's like Dark Pit. So yeah, Dr. Mario was mine. I was very happy like to write that entry. And so when the ideas start flowing that fast, when we realize it's something that we care about, then we're comfortable with making it a countdown. I think, you know, your comment might suggest that, you know, a lot of people that are seeing this are like, God, they only did this for the clicks. And we did this because it cracks us up. We did this because we wanted to see our list. We did this because it was a fun debate. And I can understand why it could get people upset. I will promise this, and I will, you know, make a point to make sure that it is a reality. We're not going to do a ton of stuff like this. This was a list that definitely came up out of nowhere. We had a list already planned for December. Whatever the list that was, I remember what it is now, got pushed to January because we're like, we should obviously do this in December when Smash Brothers is out. And so it's something we wanted to take advantage of. Not only obviously the popularity of the game and the fact that community is talking about this stuff right now, but the fact that we're all talking about this stuff right now. I was playing Smash Brothers for hours yesterday, and so yeah, we did it because it made us happy. So I don't feel bad in that regard for doing it for that reason, but at the same time, I don't think it's something that we should overdose, and we should always keep in mind the main point of your comment, which is any video could be any new allies' potential first video, and we should always consider that. Eric Jackson, a long while back, you acknowledged that based on the overall monthly pledge, you were able to employ yourself, Ben, and Damiani as full-time staff. Haven't got this question in a while. Happy to answer it again, if I'm recalling correctly. Has that changed at all in the intervening time, or do the remaining allies still occupy a part-time status? If you're at liberty to say what pledge benchmark would be needed to bring on another of the existing allies into full-time status, and what's that conversation like to have with the allies? Currently, it is a non-issue to discuss any of the allies becoming more full-time than they are. It is also a non-issue to discuss bringing in another employee. Those two things are just dead in the water. Basically, right now, every ally is full-time with the exception of probably Kyle, Ian, and Don. Don is the most not full-time because Don currently works at Funhouse. And Ian and Kyle are the two allies. Blood also has a part-time job, but I don't think it really takes away at all from a lot of the work that he does because it seems like Blood is always working. But Kyle and Ian are different from the other allies because Kyle and Ian seek out a lot of freelance work. You saw Kyle worked on the Game Awards. That took him away from his responsibilities EZA for a week, even though he still did the podcast, still was on the group stream, still contributed a lot to EZA. And Ian will work as an editor for other outlets, just like Don does. And so those three, because that's the way they like it, that's how their budget works out. That's the work that they have time to do. Well, you do, you do, audio design and stuff like that. You do sound design and big events and stuff. You tweet them out. You do work outside. I don't know if it's all, God, Blood, do you not get paid for that? I didn't specifically want to say if you were getting paid or if that was volunteer work, but like more work than I do. I don't do tech for nobody. Like every now and then I'll do like a editing favor for a friend, but I am not looking for outside work outside of EZA. There's way too much stuff. But Blood's loyalty being tested. So yeah, that's basically where we're at, and that's just kind of going to stay. I volunteer, so Blood, yeah, look at that. He does that all out of the. I would say Blood volunteers a lot at Easy Allies too, because he should get paid way more for the work that he does. But that's just kind of where we're at, and that's where we're going to be at for the foreseeable future. So nothing to do with audio at all. All right, dude, sorry, man. Yeesh. I just, trying to throw some light at the fantastic work Blood is doing at his church and producing all these incredible shows. And it's like, if I don't get it exactly right. He does lighting. I'm sorry. I know your lighting grid. You show off all the sets and the lighting and stuff like that. Let me take a break. I'm sorry. I'm just shook. Right? It's just a lot of information going on. It's not the same if I don't have you sitting next to me, Blood. Eric Jackson, a long while back, you acknowledged that based on the over. Oh, sorry. We did this. Yeah. Answered that. Rob Austin with a gigantic question. Oh, this is another one. Another potential editorial, but we'll try to wrap it up as soon as we can. Rob Austin, you guys need to do SEO on your top videos and video titles and descriptions. As an internet marketer, it pains me to see you guys work so hard, yet throwing thousands of dollars in subscribers away every month by ignoring the most important yet easy part of growing a YouTube channel. All you have to do is quickly and creatively add buzzwords in the video title and description. The title is much more important. And then switch the position of the normal title with the buzzword-filled sentence so that buzzwords appear first. For example, instead of Easy Allies Podcast number 138, 11, 14, 18, it should be, is Nintendo CEO Reggie Fils-Aimé's body finally ready? Or whatever the hot news of the week is. This will automatically boost your rankings based on Google's algorithms because the current news is relevant and there are already hundreds of videos named the Easy Allies Podcast. There are? We should probably do something about that. After making these simple changes, you'll see a massive instant growth of your subscriber base and earnings right away. Have you ever wondered why Easy Allies has less than 200,000 subscribers while less talented channels rocket past it every day? I don't worry about, I don't know. I don't think, yeah. Not a question. I know why. It's not a question. This is why. Recently, a new channel called Girlfriend Reviews has made it to 133K subscribers in less than 2 weeks and with only 4 videos. Her content is great, but more importantly to growth, the basic should your boyfriend play X game title of each of her videos is enticing. It lures people into clicking on it to either hate on the content or gain information. The words friend code or Huber syndrome don't mean anything to someone who isn't an Allies fan, and they even mean less to the YouTube algorithm. I'm not trying to bust your balls here, but if you reply with we need an expert or there isn't enough time or resources, I'm gonna jump through the screen and give you a paddling. You heard it. You heard it right there. A cup of Jones first, the threatening of abuse. It's the easiest thing you guys can do to guarantee growth, so just do it, okay? It's your fiduciary duty. All right. Strong words from Rob Austin here. I don't want to get a paddling, so I can't say we need an expert because we don't need an expert. Well, I mean, it's always good to have experts. If somebody came through the door right now and they're like, I am a YouTube expert and I will work for you for free, I'd be like, no. I can't. Rob Austin's gonna paddle me. I can't. You're fired. I can't bring you in. There isn't enough time or resources. There are time, there are resources, but some of the people in chat are willing to take the paddling for me. Hopefully no paddling will be necessary following this question. So we have answers. One, we do that on some things. We do that on reviews. Before Easy Allies, it doesn't say Easy Allies review, whatever. It says Marvel Spider-Man Easy Allies review. So we definitely put Marvel Spider-Man ahead of those things. We just recently started doing that on Huber Syndrome. Huber did a syndrome where he talked about his impressions of Resident Evil 2. And so we realized the Resident Evil 2 part of that was much more important than the Huber Syndrome part. Another thing to realize is we did do our own internal testing on the Easy Allies podcast. We used to do that with GT Time. We never noticed any substantial growth doing that with our podcast at GT Time. And we started doing that with the Easy Allies podcast, where we changed up thumbnails every week. We didn't just have it be the static podcast name and date. And views plummeted. Comments were enraged. Views tanked. It did not work out because our user base, and that's the thing, is like, And we'll kind of get into my conception, which is dangerous because everybody's got their own ideas about how YouTube works. But I think one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of that with the shows that we produce, a lot of the shows we produce are very long. And a lot of the views that are, a lot of these videos that are set up in this way, like girlfriend reviews, are very short, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, or shorter. And so these are very clickable things. These are things that are easy for you to go from one episode to another, where if we really spice up the Easy Allies podcast and then you find out you're in for an hour, 30 hour, 2 hour or Frame Trap, you're in for 3-4 hours. I just don't think it has the shareability, has the viralness. First and foremost, we exist as a YouTube channel that provides for our Patreon. Patreon is our business. These are people that have stepped up following the closure of Game Trailers and said that I want this business to continue. I'm willing to fund it on Patreon, and I'm willing to fund it for these specific reasons at this specific level. So the vast majority of things that we produce on our YouTube channel, both of our YouTube channels, are done to, and Blood has a lot of opinions about this. I'm going to ignore them, but if you're watching this live, Blood thinks about this way more than I do, of course, because Blood manages our YouTube channel. Blood is the one a lot of times that is the last line of defense before something goes live. And so a lot of the stuff, there are issues. We've come to this issue with Boxpeak, where Boxpeak in a lot of ways should really have its own YouTube channel. Like, that should exist on its own on the internet, because, us being around for a long time and us being a mainstay and possibly getting one, really successful video every now and then, getting a review that breaks 200K is really exciting, but it doesn't do a lot to grow our YouTube channel as a whole. What really makes people observe a YouTube channel, like you were saying, is really fast growth. And from my experience, and so if we were to put Boxpeak up on a separate channel, have everybody go to that, then all of a sudden this channel out of nowhere is getting a ton of subscribers and a ton of views, and then all of a sudden people are getting sent that stuff and a lot of eyeballs are on it, as opposed to us putting it up with the myriad of different types of content that we produce, and then it gets kind of buried. It's unfortunate. There are probably solutions to it, and we have experimented with those things, but we have not found the right reason yet. Specifically with the podcast, with the example that you gave, we did that. It didn't work. You said it will automatically boost your rankings. It automatically tanked our rankings in many, many regards. Socially, YouTube, it was not good. And most importantly, it upset and stressed out that show's producer, Kyle Bossman, and basically convinced me, he's like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to go back to it, because I remember when it didn't work at Game Trailers and it didn't work here. A lot of our audience is saying to do it. So you are right, and we are right. Everybody's right. Woo! Like that, this stuff does work. It does work for specific types of content. Huber's show is a very girlfriend reviews type of show, where it is geared towards one specific person. That person will return every week. They will be the only person in that show unless they bring on an extra guest. And it is a show that is opinion based. It oftentimes tackles a lot of The Walking Dead, wrestling, a lot of stuff that people are talking about at the time. It is probably a show that makes sense, getting out there and letting people know what controversial thing or what thing that Huber's talking about that everyone else is talking about during that week. For the podcast, it's proven not to work. And for other shows, it is, again, it's on Ben Moore to consider implementing that with Frame Trap. I'm sure he might potentially have the same issues as the podcast. It's on Damiani to introduce that potentially with Friend Code. And so this is a conversation that we've had before, Rob, and hopefully I never said we need an expert or there is enough time or resources, because none of us consider ourselves experts. We have talked to what we consider experts and gotten their advice on this stuff. And there are time and resources to do it. It's just something that we have not found that works in the past, unless it's done specifically for the reasons that I've suggested. Hopefully that's a safe answer. Hopefully that disappointed you and pleased you at the same time. Master Pants. Suggestion, live Q&A cleanup crew. You could have just one or two people finish off the Q&A questions that didn't have a chance to get read during the 2-hour limitation of the live Q&A. They could either stick around at the end or do it at a later date when it's convenient, even if it was rapid fire. It'd be better than nothing, just a suggestion. Yeah, it'd be interesting to not even have it be a live Q&A cleanup crew. It'd be interesting to do like a once a month Q&A cleanup crew. So we clean up all the love and respects we didn't get to. We clean up all the Q&As we didn't get to. If there's anything a Cup of Jones that I think should be brought up to the group at large or around somebody else, or something that is pertinent, or maybe some of my favorite comments from the month, that could be fun. I wrote that in the takeaways. Thank you for that suggestion. Kylie, while Goaties is right around the corner, I wanted to submit an idea for an award. This is the Make It Right Award, given to a game from recent history that may not have gotten the love it deserved at the time. But now that more people have gotten a chance to play it, it's time to make it right and give it some props. Yes, this is purely based off how much everyone ignored Night in the Woods last year. Seriously, not nominated for Best Side-Scroller? Best Side-Scroller was a weird award, admittedly. As for an actual question, will you guys be visiting the 2018 predictions you made, along with 2019 predictions? Yes. Again, a lot of stuff in the beginning of January is up in the air. We do want to continue a lot of those things, but please be excited. Please be patient with us as we figure out all the studio stuff. Some stuff might get left behind. We don't know. Steele, as a relative newcomer past 6 months to Easy A and a fan of movies, TV, comics with deep mythologies and origins, could I ask that we get an Easy A Origins podcast at some point that looks at each ally's origin story, how they got into gaming, came to GT, etc., and how they got brought into Easy A. Nabs on Patreon already answered this for me, in a sense. Huber Syndrome is pretty cool for that. He interviews each of the members about things you mentioned, and Osteal thanked Nabs for that comment, and then went on, hopefully, to go check those out. So if you haven't seen those yet, Huber did interview each of us individually about all sorts of wacky things, but I have been thinking, and it would be fun to maybe do this in 2019, to do that with Cup of Jones as well, to have a Cup of Jones. I had Blood on. He kind of filled in to answer questions. I didn't necessarily talk about stuff, but maybe have an editorial portion at the end of that Cup of Jones where I talk about my perspective of how I met that person, how I saw that person work, what I think that person's pluses and most importantly minuses are. And I think that would be fun. So I'll consider doing that in the future. But for now, you can go see the Huber Syndromes. I don't even remember what Huber and I talked about, because he had me on to talk about Red Dead and Arkham at another point this year. So I don't even remember if we talked about Batman during that Huber Syndrome. That's the syndrome. Christopher McClung. Hey, Chris. With the Game Awards recording at least 11 million viewers, do those numbers, they got 26 million viewers. 26. Double the traffic from last year. Do those numbers quantify viewers that are watching through third-party streams? I don't know. I know that the Game Awards on Twitter tweeted that out, so I don't know if they mentioned that specifically, that was part of it as well. In short, does that 11 million incorporate viewers watching through an Easy Ally stream? I think it does. Although I do not know the answer personally. My wife and I watch the awards live straight through the stream. The next day, I'll rewatch it again, but this time I'll watch the Easy Allies post. Both are enjoyable, and both are hours of equal but different enjoyment. Thank you, Christopher, for that support. Overall, I want to ensure I'm giving my views to both parties without the other canceling out. Thank you very much for doing that. Keeley says he was collecting numbers from partners. Nice. So yeah, it made it in, but you also gave us a view as well, Chris. I appreciate that. Ulf himself, I miss voting for stuff. I know the group stream selection committee was kind of a mess, but do you think you'll ever bring back the system you had before that, where you guys pick a couple of games for the community to vote on? It doesn't even need to be every week. Once a month would be great. Voting on the tournament stream would be awesome. Noted. We are hopefully you have appreciated as a patron all of the patron exclusive stuff that we've given out, especially after E3 this year, and I hope all of that was gratifying. I hope all of that was our better stuff before E3 stream in 2018. Did that just happen, or was that last year? I can't remember. Man. 2018, it's a blur. Snowcone Guy, besides the podcasts of Easy Allies, the only other podcast that I watch is the Nintendo Voice Chat from IGN. And there's one big difference for me. The NVC often shows videos of the games they're talking about on the screen. I think this is a very good feature, as it is a good reminder of what the mentioned game looked like, as well as something for the eyes of the viewers. When asked for this feature in the past, you, the Allies, said that it's not possible. With the new studio coming up, I'd like you to reevaluate the possibility. If you need to make a fundamental change, to how you record your podcasts, this would be great timing. After all, you said our favorite shows would come back better than ever. I don't know the details of how you currently record the podcast or what tools Ian will use in the control room, but as I understand it, if you currently would have to edit in the game footage in a post. There should be a solution for you to record the podcast live on tape. It would mean some preparation and changes. There is the camera swapping you see on the podcast that is done live. This would mean some preparation and changes. The sponsors would no longer have to be read in random order. I'm not sure how that applies. If Ian is playing their live clips live during the recording. And obviously, you have to collect your B-roll footage of games into a database and make little 30 to 60 seconds loops of it so Ian can quickly pull something up if you mention a game. But all this work would probably pay off in the long term, as you would massively save on editing time after you recorded an episode. You possibly could even release the podcasts sooner after recording them. And who knows, maybe if you research the necessary technical requirements, it turns out to be less complicated than you thought. And the skills and capabilities that you would gain will surely come in handy at some point later, making the whole of Easy A better. Yes. First of all, it's tough because what you're talking about, you see, Snow Cone Guy, it's like in one sense, you're like, it's easy. You don't have to do all this work after the fact. Basically, what you're suggesting is we'll have to do all that work before the podcast now. So if you think about the idea of getting B-roll, having a B-roll depository that I could go and remove clips from and put in the podcast after the fact if people talk about them, versus having even more stuff than you think you need before the podcast, just in case people bring it up, and then putting that stuff into the podcast. And potentially seeing the same clips, because if it's like, oh, they're talking about Beyond, not Beyond Good and Evil, Detroit Become Human. Here's that Detroit Become Human 60-second clip that you've seen 5 times already. Let me bring that up. And it's more work on Ian, it's more work on Kyle, and Kyle only has so much time to put together the podcast every week, and so that would be more work for Kyle to have to like create that B-roll ahead of time. And just as someone who cuts the podcast, as someone who tries to get that up, my solution for that now is I let the podcast export while I'm sleeping, and then the second I get up, I post it. And so that currently is like the quickest we can get the turnaround on the podcast. If I was to add on the back end, having to find those clips and time them up, and I'm kind of a perfectionist in that regard. One of the other things is to consider is our current 58K goal, basically like the sequel to GT Live, which we did back at Game Trailers. That will not be called Easy A Live; it'll be called something else, but. Will be live, and I kind of want to have this attitude about it, kind of like Saturday Night Live without the skits. Basically something where you hope it goes right, but it probably won't. There'll probably be some weird hiccups around it. I don't want that to be our podcast. I want our podcast to look and sound as good as it possibly can. We are thinking of ways to improve the podcast to make it be a little flashier than before, but I don't know if we want to preload all of that stuff. I don't know if it's important for an hour-and-a-half discussion for you to actually specifically see the footage. I know some of us, I think Friendcode has experimented with this a little bit in the past. You're right in that it'll make it better. I mean, it does have production value. It is more exciting. We have got the opposite comment from people that are like, no, I want to watch you throughout the entire podcast. I want to see all of your expressions. I want to see all of your reactions to what other people are saying. Even when we started doing close-ups, people are like, don't do close-ups. I want to see the wide shot. I want to see everyone all the time. And so different people have different ideas about what they want to be looking at through the podcast, not to mention all the people that don't care about any of it because they're just listening to the podcast and they don't see that stuff anyway. So there will be improvements to the podcast, actual raw gameplay of the stuff that we're talking about, unless it's like a very specific trailer, unless it's like a very specific video that Kyle's like, look at this, and we're all looking at it. I don't know if we'll integrate that stuff in the future. And all the talks that we've had of ways that we can improve the podcast, putting B-roll on it hasn't come up as something that we think would make it better. But we think it would be worth to figure out how to add to make it better. Not that it would make it better. Wouldn't. Moving on. Beating down Brian. On the group stream, you mentioned that the deliberations would be pre-recorded this year. While I'm very much in favor of that idea, I just wanted to add that I hope they will be left pretty raw, as in, I hope they don't end up being overly edited or shortened just to keep the video or videos inside of some artificial time limit. We will not have an artificial time limit. We'll let that baby run as long as we want to. We'll only cut it if like somebody's got to get up and go to the bathroom, or if there's something that somebody says later, like, I didn't like the way I worded that, take that out. But we're not going to be like cutting that down. For a lot of you that are like, I wasn't watching the group stream. What is this? We are in talks. Again, I don't want to confirm anything in terms of Goaties because we don't know if we're going to be in the studio when we want to do Goaties. We don't know if we're going to be recording that here or where or what's going to happen. But We experimented last year with doing it live. We learned a lot of lessons from that. If we want to do it again live in the future, there are a lot of changes that we would implement. This year, we want to try recording those deliberations and see how that goes. We think that will be better than what we did before. We're not 100% positive. That's why we want to do it as a test. So we will be recording that stuff. We will be streaming that so everybody can watch that live. That's the plan right now. We haven't put up a promo for that yet. We haven't made an official Patreon post. That's just me blabbing away on Cup of Jones. So that'll obviously change depending on where we shoot it and if we are in the studio, how we plan to shoot it in the studio. So many details that have to be figured out before that happens. So stay tuned for that announcement. Rammer, first off, I just wanted to say that the playtest of the Huber Game Show Mysterious Monsters is absolutely exciting to see. Ian and the Allies' vision of the product is amazing, and I can see everyone's passion bleed through its creation. I also understand that this is not the final product, and many things are still changing. Here are 2 main takeaways that you can either take or leave at your discretion. There are too many rules. I was having a hard time keeping track of what effects each item had on what items everyone had in their inventory. Perhaps a smaller, simpler set of items can help avoid confusion to viewers. We thought about that during the show, and I think changes are coming. Double attack combos, etc. seemed excessively complex, at least for me to keep track of. You'll also see a lot of that displayed more visually on the actual set itself and on the people and on the HUD. You'll see more examples of who's potentially using what. So we had a lot of ideas. Also, the graphics that you saw, those aren't... The monsters are final, but the background, the HUD, I don't believe that is final. Rounds are too similar. Other than the change in questions, creatures, there was no real change in the way the game was played. Perhaps a small up the ante as the rounds progress can help liven the show. This may also help last place contestants achieve a comeback. We also talked about that too, like how much gold you get for certain things, how much gold you're able to hoard and spend on what abilities. And there was a question of like, what if I got my ass kicked in the first round, like, can I come back? Is there some way that the points totals double or something that gives me a chance? You don't know Jack style. This may all help last place. Okay, also, I understand this is mainly a trivia game, but perhaps having a round just dedicated to completing a task or challenge will help keep the show fresh. There will be a lot of stuff with costumes and props, so you can maybe see stuff like that organically evolve as the show continues. For example, a round could consist of each contestant playing a snippet of a video game level, themed after monsters, of course, and completing said level for gold. Maybe. Sounds like more rules. I don't know. You said there's too many rules. Carl Williams, I had a question regarding the debut of the new studio. When the time finally comes to debut the studio in a group stream or whatever is ultimately chosen, will there be a promo vid made prior to the unveiling? Hell yeah. Not only will it serve as a reminder of current patrons and fans who are eagerly awaiting to see the new studio, but it will also entice possible newcomers to check you guys out and possibly become patrons themselves. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. I'm blanking out when I read that last. My mind was elsewhere. Sorry. Not only will it serve as a reminder of current patrons and fans who are eagerly awaiting to see the studio, but also entice possible newcomers to check you guys out and possibly become patrons themselves. Yeah, I thought that was like a new idea, but you were just describing where that video would work. Yeah, of course we'll have a promo. Of course we'll be blowing all that stuff out. We want to get other channels involved, obviously, in that announcement and make sure everybody in the world knows that we have a new studio. The Finnish Ally. In a previous episode, you mentioned that you are probably going to put episodes of Full Playthrough Fridays on Easy Allies Plays. Personally, I think you guys should reconsider. In fact, here's my top 4 reasons why Full Playthrough Fridays should be on your main channel. Number 4. Full Playthrough Friday is a show. It was introduced at Easy Living and on your YouTube promo as a show. Every other show that you do, especially one ties to a stretch goal, is on your main channel. Since putting Easy Allies clips on hiatus, you really don't have any content on your main channel that promotes your Twitch channel on Easy Allies Plays. Good point. Monthly Full Playthrough Friday episodes. I'm sorry, number 3. Since putting Easy Allies clips on hiatus, you really don't have any content on your main channel that promotes your Twitch channel or Easy Allies Plays. Monthly Full Playthrough Friday episodes could be a convenient way to do this without clogging your main channel with various streams. Number 2. This would give your main channel even more diversity. I love that you put out so much quality content for many tastes, and the game's show looks fantastic, by the way, but the only public videos on your main channel of just you guys playing a game are tabletop, right? This move would give your main channel something that may be currently lacking, and I believe this way the episodes would really stand out. Number 1. Your main channel has 200,000 subscribers. Congratulations. Almost. Easy Allies Plays has 26,000. When are you going to put hours and hours? When you're going to put hours and hours of your time into completing a game in one sitting, why not share it with the largest possible audience, especially if you would like to leave the door open for sponsors? Yes, I hear you. I will consider it. I think we're still down with putting it on Plays because of just the size of it. I really don't want to put anything else or promote anything else too extensively on our YouTube channel that's like 8 hours long. Like we just have, our YouTube channel is, you use the term clogged with a lot of different things, and a lot of those are very large format where we really want to try to get those special easy update episodes out in front of people's eyeballs. Box Peek, our reviews, the shortest format stuff we definitely want to shine on the channel. And while I think the best point that you bring up is that we did pitch full playthrough Fridays as a show. I think the main difference is so many of our goals are show-based. I think this is the first stream that we've put actually on our Patreon as a goal. So this is something that we will do live. This is something that you can get archived, but because there is the Twitch live variant that then gets put onto Plays, I think it just fits within that format. That might be something that we change in the future. And of course, we're not at that goal yet, so we have a lot of time to reconsider those things, and I'll bring that up with the rest of the team. Rory McGuire, I was wondering how you felt about linking out 1 or 2 Patreon exclusive videos. There are some things you guys put out that I know some friends of mine would like and would be most likely to get them to support you all on Patreon. However, it feels a little icky to give someone free content that we all pay for. Is there a line we shouldn't be crossing here? It's a line. We'll cross it. I think it's just in terms of, it's like, you know, Rise of the Tomb Raider on Xbox. It came to PlayStation eventually. You know, it'll happen. It's just like we want it to exist in a space where it's going to do the most good, and encourage people behind the scenes. We are producing a lot of stuff that is not exclusive, and so possibly in a lull between the times we do stuff exclusive, it would be fun to maybe make And for That Reason public for everybody. Obviously, we have been doing more promotional stuff, pointing people towards the Patreon, introducing them to the things, maybe giving them little tastes of stuff. Possibly maybe just doing the first episode could do that if that would get people searching for stuff. But we have just seen nice growth with our current method of advertising for Patreon exclusives. We're not really in a desperate place to get more people to check that out. And that's a tactic we could use in the future when we're ready to do it. Reagan Raiden. I'm currently binge watching Tabletop Escapades, and I noted how often it seems like a minor struggle for Ben to keep up with player placement. Having DM'd before myself, I can't imagine playing the way he is without getting totally lost. Then it dawned on me that the studio is now a thing that's happening soon. So my question is, would it be possible with the added space the studio brings to include a tabletop playing board with miniatures for everyone to pick up and move around? Being Ben's show, this is totally up to him, and perhaps doing things the way he has been for so long, only to change the formula might be too much to ask of him. But are there any plans to take advantage of the blessing of size the studio brings for shows like Tabletop? Yes, I wouldn't want to kind of shoehorn Tabletop into the studio space. We aren't really going to be considering Tabletop specifically when we design that space. That'll go in the stage space. That wouldn't be in the streaming room. Maybe he wants to do it in the streaming room. Maybe we could do it cozy style with people sitting around a table with multiple cameras as opposed to the way we do it now. Totally up to Ben. I will say that the moving into the studio offers us that possibility. True. I don't think the stage space can be moved around that much. That's kind of the point of the stage space is, well, we're going to shoot Huber's Game Show in there. We're going to have to move things around, but we would want to move them around in a way that we would shoot for like 2 days and then be done for like the year and then move everything back. So we definitely want to keep things as nailed down as possible. I don't, I'm worried about this giant miniature set that's just living in the studio space that we have people coming in for like Easy A Live. They're like, what's the, like Rivendell over here, what's going on? And just like, oh yeah, that's for a different show. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Oh, you knocked it over. No, we'll see. Mr. Mags, will the wrestling chair move into the new studio? This guy, this wrestling chair right here, one of these, one of the VIP experience for WWF 2000 or WWE. Is it WWE or WWF 2016? I always forget. I think it's F now. It was E when I was into it. Taco, after yes, all of that, that'll probably be in the green room, where everybody goes to eat snacks. Taco, after watching Ben's review of Fallout 76, which received a 2 spoilers, I was wondering, how bad does a game have to be to receive a 1? Although I believe and agree with the score, I can't imagine what a worse game that would actually be reviewed would look like. Do you think it's possible for a AAA game to receive an easy A1, simply for the fact that the budget will likely allow something to be redeemable? Good point, and likely not. Is an easy A1 not allowed in the same way a GT10 wasn't allowed because no game is truly the worst? Easy A1 is definitely allowed. There is a 0 as well. I love that every time we do reviews, Ian's like, I made it. I made the 0. It's there. Is 1 even the lowest score, or is there a 0 or 0.9 as well? Do you have any examples of your gaming past that you could assign a score like that? No, but I did, when we did trailer score, I did give a trailer a 1. I was like, this is it. I found it. I found the worst trailer ever. And it was literally just a logo. It was a Pokemon game. And it was just a logo. And then Pikachu came in and then walked off. And I was like, I bet they didn't even animate that Pikachu for this trailer. I bet they had that. Then they just slapped that over. Like, literally nobody worked on this. I could have made this trailer in 5 minutes. 1. This is the worst trailer, officially the worst trailer I've ever seen. It was like a flash animation. Wasn't a trailer. Basically, how was frustrated Ben seemed with this time with Fallout 76 and how actually broken the game is despite being full priced. I'm super curious what a whole 2.0 worse looks like. Again, like one of the reasons you don't see a lot of 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s and 5s is we don't want to play those games. We want to play games we're very curious about. We want to play games that we think are going to get people to turn their heads and look at the way that we do reviews. And obviously, you're going to be commenting on experiences we're going to have anyway. One of us is going to be playing Smash Brothers. I was going to play Just Cause 4 no matter what, and so I might as well, work with the developers and work with the publishers and get a review out to you and put my official stamp on how good I think the game is. But there's a lot of games that we just try out that we're like, okay, that was weird, and we live stream, but we don't actually get around to scoring that. Are potential ones. There are a lot of potential ones out there. I don't know off the top of my head, and even when we get jokey about scores, I don't want to be, oh, that's it for business questions. I don't want to be like, Blood says, I know it's hard to believe that there are definitely worse games out there, but the chances are we just wouldn't review them. Yeah. I don't want to even joke about games. So whenever like one of the allies like, that's a 10 out of 10. I'm like, careful, like you could be quoted on that. Like, and as reviewers, like, I don't like to even joke about something. When I play a game for a little bit, I felt really bad during Fantasy 15 when I did not score my game well. Spoilers. I don't, you can go check out the actual episode, but, I just don't like to get playful with scoring because it is something that we do and something that we take seriously. So I would take very seriously if I played a game that was super bad and had to dip into the load digits. But when I first got that script for Fallout, I was like, scroll, 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 scroll. He did it. And then I read the review and he's right. Like, Ben brings up a lot of really great points. That's probably one of my favorite Ben Moore reviews of all time. I think he did a really good job, especially in the wake of everybody having their own wild opinions all over the place about Fallout 76. To really have a clear, concise criticism. Feedback, personal. Take a sip of water too, a very quiet sip of water too. All right. That couldn't have been quiet. Feedback, personal. Professor Metal Gear, speaking of rain, what's your fondest memory of video gaming when it's either pouring rain or snowing outside? I had an evening of Red Dead Redemption, I think, where it was raining. That was pretty rad. I love playing like an MMO when it's raining, because I really like the idea of the persistence, being in a world for an extended period of time, really seeing a world tick with live players and AI working together, and just being in like a cozy environment with rain outside and you're in a warm place. Nothing really pops out though. Sorry, Metal Gear. I just really, really like that. Being inside when I don't have anything to do and it's raining and I either have a movie to watch, or like even when I'm outside and it starts raining, I run inside just to tell Amanda, because I like being inside of our house and like, it's raining. It really could be anything. I could be playing a 1.0 game and it's raining, and I would enjoy that. Edgar Esturdo Reyes Garcia. Do you stress out when there are so many good games to play but not enough time to play them? Yes. Yeah, I do. I stress out a lot. Is the extreme reception of Fallout 76 partially due to a backlog of resentment? The game is quite simply a slog, but a lot of the criticisms aimed at it would apply to nearly all of the games Bethesda Game Studios has produced. I disagree. There's a heavy amount of criticisms for Fallout that are only applied to 76, though obviously it doesn't help that the good stuff is missing. Can BGS go back to releasing games like they used to, or is enough and they're going to need to start making polished games? We had an awesome discussion about this that I was involved in on the podcast recently. I think might have been Frame Trap. I think it was the EZA podcast, where I don't think this is going to hurt Starfield. I don't think this is going to hurt Elder Scrolls. I don't think it's going to hurt the next Fallout game. I think those games are going to be fine. I think maybe sales are going to drop a little bit, but I think it's just such a special, weird case, and I think you're going to see a lot of lessons learned at that company. And I think they still just have a lot of fans. They still got a lot of fans playing Fallout 76. I think it's fine. You know, they have a lot of people that are going to support that game. I think in 3 or 4 years we're going to forget a lot of the issues that it was facing at launch, and it could, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily going to have like a No Man's Sky turnaround, but I think time heals wounds, and I think people are going to get over it. But I think the company's not. I think Bethesda's never going to forget this. You would hope. I would hope it dinged their armor a little bit. Daniel Garza Andrade, what are the ingredients of the smoothie that you usually take for breakfast? Is it always the same, or do you try to change it regularly? Oh, dear Lord. Oh, man. I just got to personal questions. I had a great pace going.
It's gonna take
It's always a bit. It's always a bit.
Things up.
The bit can't be just saying hi to all of you. There's got to be another bit.
Just gonna take this chair. Here we go.
Did you see the pillow?
I love the pillow.
Isn't it great?
I love the pillow. Also, I just wanted to bring Sophie in here. We're gonna stop.
Yeah,
in the
just pull
studio.
up a chair. Why don't you?
I'm going to. All right, here we are. Here we go. Here are the most important allies, myself and Sophie. We just
Hi, how are
the
you?
last cup of Jones of the year. It's the last cup.
The last
of
live
Jones
one.
for the year. Oh, the last live one?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you move to the new studio, I'll have to commute.
You know who you look like right now?
A beautiful person.
Superman. With the glass, you look like Clark Kent
Clark
with the
Kent.
glasses.
Wait,
and the
and now,
dun 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 dun.
clip it.
It's not. All right.
Thanks. You know, I was trying to remove makeup from my eyes, and I just got makeup remover all over my contacts.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was like, well, that's that. I can't see through those.
I put
Today's a glasses day.
I put blueberries and Soylent and bananas. I pour water in. Then I put bananas on that, and then I put Soylent on that.
Is this a
and then I
question
put
about your
blueberries on that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm having tomorrow? Raspberries. Because they didn't have blueberries. So sometimes it's different. Sometimes you'll get mixed berries, but
mixed berries. That's a good
blueberries
combo.
are good for you.
That's got blackberries, raspberries, blueberries,
right.
and the what is it? The snowsberries taste like snowsberries.
How are you?
I'm good. You want to answer some questions?
Sure.
Great. Drop of cones.
We're in the personal part, so this is great. So
Good,
you don't have
good.
to
I'm pretty personal.
say incorrect or
talking-
inflammatory
talking to your
things about our
mom.
business.
It's personal.
Talking to my mom.
I was just talking to your mom.
My mom is super personal.
I know.
Jeffrey White, I know how you started GT, and I know how GT ended. Businesses typically go through lots of changes.
That sounds so ominous.
Yeah, but it's not. It's happy.
I know how you started GT.
I know how.
And I know
I've seen
how
your
GT
past
ended.
and your future. Businesses typically go through lots of changes so that it can hold the bottom line, and GT went through a lot of changes over the years. With that in mind, how did you stay with the company through all that time?
He was contractually obligated.
Yeah. I signed a contract.
No, I mean, you could have quit, but you didn't want to. You loved,
Oh, it's too much fun.
You
Oh,
loved
it's too much
GT.
fun. This job is so much fun, being involved in this industry. And you know what's really been fun now, that's so rewarding after all that time, is seeing people like Megan Rue and Rohan Rivas and Jeremy Hoffman, now at Epic, killing it, like making incredible live events and like, you know, having like the craziest booth at E3, and like they just had a stop motion trailer that they released. And so it's really exciting, you know, having worked with these people and now having these people going on to greener pastures and then following the new exciting things that they're working on, the stuff that like Ryan Stevens and Justin Spear and Patrick Morales and Miguel and all those guys. And but yeah, stayed with the company because it never got boring. It was always a new event. It was always a new project.
I want to highlight what you just said, which is that Game Trailers was a place where many people got their first taste of working in this industry, and they went on and they did something else that drove that passion to a bigger place. And that
Right.
was like an honor of yours to see these people come in, take what they've learned from GT and apply it to new
Yeah.
companies, new careers, and things like that. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Machinima started with GT, right? Am I wrong with that? Did I get that all mixed up?
That's a fun rumor, though.
Did I tell you guys?
If you want to,
Disneyland.
if you want to perpetuate that rumor,
at game trailers.
Did I tell you this? We invented Doritos. Did I tell you this?
Did we tell you this? That's not true.
I will say this.
Wait, did I get that wrong?
I will say that. I'll tell you what did start because of game trailers. There is one thing. One Up, which is no longer around, right? One Up did create GameVideos.com. And that was a shot across the bow, I'll tell you that.
Oh.
That was a clear creation to
what's
rival
the
game trailers
Machinima?
at the time. We saw Game Videos. Jeff Groats came to my office and he's like, "Why didn't you buy Game Videos, dummy?" And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, when you bought game trailers, you bought Game Videos. We wouldn't have had this problem, right? They would have to do like game clips or something.
Why didn't Groats have that idea?
Well, that's what I said back at him.
Why didn't Mike Buddy have that idea?
Well, because Mike Buddy was
I'm just saying.
off doing something. I don't know.
Yeah, wow. But
yeah, this job is fun.
What's the story with Machinima? Is there a story? I thought were they just in your office? Was that it?
No, you might have heard me mentioning them because Machinima had a powerful YouTube presence and we didn't. And so Machinima did a lot of the things
They started
that we
around the time you guys were
like. We had a we had an ability on GameTrailers.com for you to upload your videos through our website, and so that was like before people had really were using YouTube a lot, and it was certainly before Machinima. And so you see Machinima being like, "Oh, just do that on YouTube." And we're like, "Can we go to YouTube?" And Viacom's like, "No." And we're like,
because South Park.
So
Snowcoat Guy says, "Okay,
Why do you
buckle
gotta
up,
bring up
everybody. We're
Machinima?
going long today, so
we can't. No.
I'm just gonna stop talking."
Small Leviathan, I'd like your take on review scores in video games media. More specifically, what's the deal with the way we score games? Like OpenCritic, for example, which defines quote-unquote weak games as getting an aggregated score of less than 65. Isn't that kind of weird? Shouldn't logically a 65 be above average? Fallout 76, one of the largest flops of the year, sits with an average score of 53, still above average by the literal definition, but somehow still within the lowest 10% of all aggregated scores on the site. What's going on here? Why do game review scores as a whole only sit in the upper 35 or something of the 100-point scale? What's caused us to get to this point in the first place? I personally feel like this is something that's a problem because by limiting the range of our scores, we also limit our ability to use those scores as a shorthand to convey critical opinion in a meaningful way, and it just causes a weird critical dissonance because, like, come on, how is 8 just pretty good?
I love critical dissonance. I love that phrase.
It's a Michael Crichton book, isn't it? What's worse, you can't really stray away from this. You can't stray away from this system on your own due to sites like Metacritic and OpenCritic because your score gets aggregated the same way all the others do, even if they are contextually different. Of course, I realize this is not just a fault of games media. A lot of us consumers help perpetuate it. Take last year, for example, when Jim Sterling got his site DDoS'd because he had the audacity to give Breath of the Wild a 7, which, by the standards of its own metrics, is actually pretty good, which is just an absolutely shameful way to respond to a critic disliking something you like, which makes it all the more unfortunate that this is not the first time fans throw temper tantrums over critics not liking something as much as they do. There's a lot to unpack here. I guess my ultimate question is this. Here we go. We can ignore everything else and just focus on this. Do you believe that the way we score things in the present day is hampering our ability to perform criticism, and would it be worth it to try and rework this system on a grander scale?
May I take one stab at answering this question?
You just said you weren't going to do that.
No, Snowcone Guy said he doesn't mind if we go long. So here's what I think. Because I've been looking at the chat. I've been having thoughts while you're reading this.
You're also, you gotta get close.
You guys don't review the bad games.
I said that before you came in. Yeah, we talked about that. You
already review the cream of the crop. So they're not generally gonna be that bad. You could review things like that Duck Hunter Supreme, what was that?
It wishes it was Duck Hunter Supreme. Ultimate Duck Hunting.
Yeah, you could review more games like that and do lower scores, but it's sort of like, if you're going to, if you're a restaurant critic and you just only review things that are already Michelin starred, that's kind of the thing that you guys do, and that's just because those are the games that most people are going to be playing. You could do more niche reviews. You could review more indie games and sort of say like, here's this one landed in this, but I think you would almost need a different kind of grading scale, because if you're looking at a company like, Ubisoft or whatever, making a game, their resources are already going to set that game in another you know, like
Score bracket.
like again, getting back to food criticism, if you review like someone who has access to a full pantry of gourmet supplies, and then you review also someone's meal where they were like, I have a can of beans and a handful of grapes. Like the person who makes something really like actually edible with the can of beans and handful of grapes, like they should get a good review, but you can't review that with someone who's doing like de confit.
Next question. You're right, Amanda. Well, first of all, there's also no way to fix this. We can't. There's no, you know.
Sorry. Part 2 is that there's a little bit of like, why do people think a 7 or a 5 is bad? That someone was saying it here, and I agree with that. It's because of the mindset of like school grades.
Sure.
So if you got a 56 on a test, that would be bad.
Right.
Right.
The other thing is, and this is why, you know, because I've had this argument with Ian. Ian loves going round and round about review scores. There's a difference between grading performance and grading art, grading a product. Like if I'm grading a student, like, yeah, like if you're below 50, you're out of this school. That's the point of the school, is that like you're here for an education, you're here to show your improvement, and then that's indicating how you've done. Whereas like, so the school's like, we don't have any use for you if you're below this area. You could love a 3. You could be like, nah, this game's a 3, but I love it. I have use for this 3.
What would you rate?
You know, like,
what would you rate Cat Quest?
Cat Quest might be a 7.
It's a good game though.
Yeah, because Cat Quest doesn't.
It's really fun.
Cat Quest doesn't waste your time.
It
you
doesn't.
know?
It doesn't promise and not deliver.
But again, it's not my official score. That's not. It just, you know, I just said like 20 minutes ago, I was like, I don't like to throw scores out like that. But so I don't want to, you know, be a hypocrite in the same episode. So yeah, that's why it can be tricky. And I mean, you nailed the whole thing of us, you know, not reviewing every game. And so if you know, and I also don't like the idea of like some small independent studio doing the best they can with the game that has a lot of bugs and issues and is in early access, and then we come along as a big outlet and we're like 4, ha 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 ha. And they're like,
that's why
I'm just trying the best I can.
That's
and we're
why
like,
I said you would need to review them in
you know, it's a
different-
4. We know it's a 4. You know, their next game will be better, and then maybe we'll review
Well,
them.
it's a 4.
You know?
It's a 4 if you compare it to a AAA game title, but it could be a 7 or an 8 if you compare it to other games within that same tier of game developers.
That comment, my lovely wife, is a giant jar of very sticky peanut butter.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and that's
okay.
why. And
you are entitled to have that comment by yourself as Amanda Troop, solo person who is not paid directly for
I grade on a
for
sliding
any work
scale.
here at ECLS.
It's a sliding scale.
Because I do believe everything does fit into
I've only
a
done
larger
one
bracket.
review.
Man, oh man.
You love having me here.
Let's move on. I have like 4 more. Okay, only 3 more pages. This isn't bad.
What do you have to do today? I have a bunch of auditions.
We got to shoot frame trap in an hour and 23 minutes. So 33 minutes. Well, I got to go to our studio and talk to our set designer.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh? You know this.
I'm going to eat a sandwich.
Is it on the calendar also?
No, but I'm hungry.
Brandon, go make me a sandwich. Morgan Mohala, a question about artificial conflict and overt messages in video games. What are your thoughts on video games with specific overt messages that are usually driven by an unrealistic antagonist? Examples that come to mind are Deus Ex: Mankind Divided with racism, Horizon Zero Dawn with feminism. I really like these games, but found their messages distracting because I felt beaten over the head with them rather than thoughtfully explored. Horizon Zero Dawn and feminism. That did not beat me over the head. I missed that. That's a blog I didn't read. I missed on that direct connection. I never understood why Aloy is always condescended to by male characters and undermined for almost no reason. I think Aloy's condescended to by everyone in that game because they all think she's wacko. Even after performing heroic feats. In Mankind Divided, I couldn't understand why NPCs were hated and treated like second-class citizens because of losing their leg and having a prosthetic. I thought it was strange that a game like Wolfenstein 2 had a far more impactful message in spite of having a hyper-unrealistic premise. I will say over all these games, Wolfenstein 2 is not shy about its political leanings, like especially the marketing campaign. Like they definitely are anti-Nazi. The difference, I believe, comes from grounded antagonism versus artificial. Your thoughts? I don't. Okay, this will be a little personal Cup of Jones comment.
Yeah.
I I don't really think about a lot of that stuff that often.
Oh,
You're much better at that. Like I don't,
that's
a lot of times,
response,
and it's not, and it's not because like those issues aren't important to me. It's because of kind of what you said, where you're like, man, I felt beaten over the head with it. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to see him. I love it when I see a movie and then someone's like, you know what that movie's about, and I'm like, what? And then they tell me, and I'm like, oh. I missed it. I was swept up in the storytelling. Like I was focusing on that story for what it was, for those characters and how they existed in that world at that time. And then when somebody says, go back and watch it again. And I'm like, like, I'm trying to think. Like Frozen I think is one of the only movies I saw recently where I was like, okay, like I got it. Like I can see a lot of undertones here. This girl does not like to touch people. It's like there's a lot of interesting things going on there. That was like, it was distracting for me, to notice those bits and kind of analyze the movie as a whole before. It reminds me of film school. It's like, that's what was fun about film school is they're like, let's watch these movies that you've never thought of. You are staring. You were locked in thought.
I'm thinking about other things like this. Yeah.
And so it's in film school, it was fun and analyzing those things because we would watch the movie and then we would write a paper on it afterwards. We would have like a 2, 3, 4 hour discussion about it afterwards. And so I don't want to have that discussion while the movie's happening. I want to watch the movie and be like, neat. And then it's like, this is about racism. And you're like, oh, like, okay, yeah, totally. Like, Rope, Hitchcock's Rope and homosexuality. Like,
right.
It's kaboom. It's right there,
right.
and Rope is still a fascinating mystery. It's still a fascinating portrayal of just humanity and the value of human life and crime and the different type of people and what would bring them to commit crime. But then there's this whole other layer beneath that.
So what you're saying is that you can't necessarily answer this question because while you're enjoying things for the first time, sometimes those deeper meanings don't impact you.
I think most of the time creators that make content I enjoy don't go overboard with it because I don't necessarily pick it up right away. Is my answer.
I will say I always like when people use their art to try to improve the world. I think that that's important. I think that sometimes things are done skillfully and sometimes things are done a little clunkily. But I'm okay with it either way. As long as it's to improve the world. And if the message is, listen to women or, don't like Nazis, I'm okay with it. I think one of the dangers of this conversation is sort of the like take your activism out of my entertainment. And I mean, people in the entertainment industry are empathetic, caring people. We want to change the world with our art. So there's always been activism in entertainment. In my opinion, this is a hot take from Amanda. It's just that sometimes it's done more subtly.
Yeah. If you don't notice it, you wouldn't have a problem with it. It's like you something might have been done
There was also a study. We were listening to that podcast, Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, Revisionist History, and he was saying on there that when you look at satire, people can almost, not always, but sometimes they can look at satire and from two different, completely opposite perspectives get the same feeling of validation of their beliefs. Like people watching Colbert Report, people on the liberal side of things would say like, oh, he really gets this. This is all tongue in cheek. He's definitely a liberal. People on the more conservative side, they'd watch it. They go, oh,
that's my guy.
That's my guy. He sees things my way. Yeah. And it's an interesting thing that our brains do where we are constantly seeking to validate our own personal beliefs as opposed to seeking to challenge them.
Specifically in Deus Ex, and I thought this was fascinating because I worked on the retro, and so it was neat learning a little bit more about that world. But in Mankind Divided, everyone gets prosthetics, but they need this drug so the prosthetics don't reject human tissue, and that drug gets more and more and more and more expensive, and so people can't afford it. So you have a lot of homeless people that are on the streets with like fake, not fake, but like metal legs, metal arms,
prosthetics.
And I like that because I think that has connections to drugs. There's just a lot of different call outs. And I think the difference is when you have something that is not it doesn't seem like it's intended or to be packaged as political, and then you come, oh, whoa, I can see all this underlying stuff in there. Whereas I think Deus Ex is definitely trying to be political. The advertising is very much like, you know, News at 11 like approach to what the future might look like. Woo, that one got heated. Let's talk about Super Mario Bros. 3. Binford Edgar Benton III. Could you give me some fond memories or thoughts about Super Mario Bros. 3 and your favorite world from that game? It's my all-time favorite game, and I'd love to hear you speak about it for a minute or two. Have you played Super Mario Bros. 3?
Which one is that one?
That's the one with the Tanuki suit. That's the one where you can become a flying raccoon.
Oh, yeah.
You
I love that one.
You can flying around.
Yeah.
I remember seeing I remember like the whistles blew me away. I remember somebody showing me that you could beat that game in like a half an hour.
Oh yeah, the whistles.
I still think it's the prettiest NES game anyone ever made. I think it's.
Oh yeah, the whistles.
I think Super Mario Bros. 3 didn't come out on an NES or an SNES. It's on some weird mid console. Like it achieved this kind of visual crispness. And like when you look at screenshots, you'd be like, it kind of looks like any other NES game. You got to see it run. Like you have to see that game in motion. There's just something about how it works, how smooth it is, how smooth all the transitions are, the depth of the environments, like how much different stuff is in there. I was bad at Super Mario Brothers 2 for a long time. Was the only Super Mario Brothers game I beat. I didn't beat Super Mario Brothers 1 until game trailers, until a feature we were working on at GT.
Super Mario 2, I got to the boss. I think I never beat it.
Mario 1 is so hard.
I think I never beat Super Mario 2. I could get to the end and get to the end and get to the end, and I never beat it.
And I
played that with my Aunt Emma.
I remember beating 3. Your Aunt Emma's, yeah, good.
She got really good at it.
And 3, I remember that fight. I think that's still one of my favorite Bowser fights, because I just love the idea of him trying to smash you and destroying the environment that again leads to his downfall. A good base for any good Bowser fight. Three's a gem. Matt Kurlowski. I've been thinking a bit about Star Wars Fallen Order, and I hope hoping it could be the classic great Star Wars game of this generation, and I'm hoping it will be shown at the Game Awards. What could the game be? What would you like the game to be? Be interesting if it's third person. I don't know if that team has made a third person game yet. Have they? If they haven't, it might be a first person lightsaber game, because the only thing we've seen, so this is Respawn Entertainment. These are guys who used to make really good Call of Duty games, have moved on, and then they created a series called Titanfall, and now they're going to make this Jedi game called Fallen Order. We don't know anything. Andrea Renee was in the crowd at the last EA press conference at E3, and she was like, "Hey, I'm here with Respawn. What's it called?" He's like, "It's called Jedi Fallen Order," and she's like, "Cool." And we're like, "Great update, thanks." You know, it's like, this Star Wars game. I guess we'll tell you about it later. And this is after Amy Hennig. Remember Amy Hennig, who we met at the cantina.
Yeah.
Her game got canceled.
Oh yeah.
Battlefront 2 was a big fiasco because of microtransactions. This game hasn't been announced. Star Wars is just like Solo came out, and then all these other projects got canned. Episode 8 was just a big, nest of bumblebees. Like Star Wars Land is kind of like the one thing I know is going to happen and be good and be excited about with Star Wars. I need to see that Resistance animated show, but I'm always hoping for some kind of cross era lightsaber combat game. So a third person game where I can move the camera around, do 16 or even 32 multiplayer matches where it's 32 Jedi.
Just lightsabers?
Where you jump in and it picks your Jedi. So you're like, "Oh, I'm Mace Windu. All right, here we go." And you just see a battlefield. And like everyone just comes running in. Okay, Amanda likes Nidhogg. We don't have to bring Nidhogg into this.
If there was a lightsaber game with Nidhogg style fighting.
If there was any game with Nidhogg style fighting. Amanda's really into Nidhogg, by the way.
I love it.
I had not expected that. Did not see that coming. Amanda is obsessed with Nidhogg. But that's a whole other thing. I would love that. I'd love it, obviously, to have a story component, but I would love there to be just some kind of multiplayer mode, like Battlefront, except it's not just like, oh, there's 2 Jedi heroes. Like, I want everyone to be Jedi. I want the entire battlefield to just be Jedi and have everybody doing force moves and stuff. I think that would be so cool. Jalen Brooks, very on point. Would you give Battlefront 2 a shot? I did. I have not played it since. I have it on the Xbox because my dear friends, Garen and Mike, also have Xboxes and play a lot of Battlefront, and we have not played it a lot since. But maybe over the holidays, maybe next year. I don't know. A lot of great updates. They got the Clone Wars now. They got General Grievous and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and some fun updates.
Like, you just know when you meet someone named General Grievous that he's just gonna just make things hard. He's just like, it's in the name.
In a general way.
You know, I think if you are a character in a story and you're like, who am I? Oh, General Grievous. You're just like, darn it. I wanted to like foster puppies.
Not in
Now
Star
I
Wars.
can't.
Not in Star Wars. Alexander Zirianov, back in August, I asked you why you wanted to review Red Dead Redemption 2, since playing for the review forces you to rush through the game and do some unwanted stuff for the sake of variety, which will tamper your experience. You've said that you will do this because you want to tell others about this game when they only begin their journey. But if I understand correctly, when it launched, nobody wanted to listen to you because of the fear of spoilers. This is true, except my wife and my trainer, who I spoiled everything for. And if I'm not mistaken, you have regrets about rushing through this game more than you wanted to. I wouldn't go so far as to say regrets. There were bummer parts of it. So, looking back, do you think it was the right call to review Red Dead Redemption 2? Hell yeah. First of all, I got to play it before most every other person in the world, so I have no regrets of that. I started Red Dead Redemption 2 in the living room with my mother-in-law making catering food behind me. No regrets. And with the volume down real low and subtitles on. But I have actually been surprised since Red Dead Redemption 2 came out of a lot of the issues that people have had with Red Dead Redemption 2. And I've debated and decided against making a video where it's like, I like this game, you know, because I already did that. I put up my review, I gave it a 10. I thought that game was, phenomenal. And so I Amanda suggested, because you've been subjected to me complaining about Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And Amanda was like, why don't you just make a video and get this off your chest? And I was like, no, I just want to complain to you, Amanda.
And I'm like,
about all these people.
Well, I got things to do, so
that are like,
bye.
the story is boring and this gameplay sucks and Rockstar can't do shooting and they hate the horse controls and I'm choking people right and left.
This is Brandon quoting people who are complaining about the game, right?
Right. No, it's just you. This is just you. You were playing Red Dead. You had all these issues. And so for that reason, I'm glad that my 10 got out. I'm glad I put up that video that I'm like, this game's amazing. And I am preparing and will in due time give you my discourse for why I think why Red Dead Redemption 2 is my game of the year. And I'm looking forward to making that speech, to preparing those things, to hopefully elevating the conversation beyond a lot of the issues that people have had. I would not be in a position right now to do that had I not had that week or two advance. Had the Allies not given me a chance to take some days off and finish that game and get that ready.
My game of the year
Absolutely zero regrets.
Dragon Quest Builders 2.
What Builders, the game that hasn't come out yet?
Oh, just the first one.
Just the first one. That's your game of the year?
Yeah.
That Nidhogg?
No, Nidhogg was fun, but it's not my game of the year.
Builders.
Builders.
Is your favorite? Nice. That makes me so happy.
That
Cesar
didn't
Villa.
come out this year.
Have you ever watched Kevin
Did it?
Smith's
No.
Zack and Miri Did Not make a porn? I think
Have you
I think
seen
it came out on Switch
I love that movie.
in February, but it came out on PS4 and everything last year.
I see. I love Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I think that's a cute movie.
I sure hope that thing that happens to their Star Wars-based studio doesn't happen to you guys.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will either. Although I have been thinking of a lot of fun parallels. I watched Weird Al Yankovic's UHF the other day, and I was like, "It's us." He's like, "We got a studio," and he puts on all these crazy shows, and like Stanley Spadowski gets his own show, and I'm like, "It's Huber."
This one time,
just picture Huber being like, "This is my mop."
this one time, Brandon and I were at a Simpsons party, and I said, "Brandon, that's Weird Al Yankovic," and he said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Yes, I think it is." And then he looks and he goes, "Yeah, it is." So I went up and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Al." And I said something like, "I like your work." And he was very nice.
Yes, of course. The nicest guy's like,
believe
"Oh,
I said,
thanks."
"Excuse me, Mr. Al." It's a silly
The famous
way to say
Mr.
hi.
Al. But I've been
But
thinking.
I was rather starstruck.
Thought about UHF and Wayne's World. I've been thinking about a lot too because I was a big fan of Wayne's World as a kid, and now I'm living it. My life is Wayne's World.
Wayne's World.
I needed that.
You're welcome.
Clearly, my comment wasn't enough. It
Wayne's
needed-
World. Wayne's World. Excellent.
Have you seen Wayne's World?
Yeah.
Have you seen Wayne's World 2?
Only if you showed it to me.
If you're not sure, you're not allowed to talk
And
about
you
Wayne's
know,
World
I
anymore.
always conflate those with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Andy Zulkifli, I have taken.
When are they going to time travel?
I have taken my own time playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and I would like to know your opinion. Which character from Arthur Morgan's gang that you feel closely related to, and if possible, if any of the other gang members are considered similar to the allies in terms of their personalities? We went through this. I think we did. Blood is. I am obviously Dutch. Blood is Hosea. Kyle is what's his name? Micah.
Who's Sophie?
Sophie. They don't have a dog. They don't have a dog at
What
camp.
about
I don't
me?
think.
Who am I?
You're well. If I'm Dutch, you're. What is her name? I don't even remember her name. I don't remember her name. I don't. Up top, Dolly. I think maybe might be Dolly, Dolly or Holly or something.
Dolly like the sheep.
Lenny is probably Ben. Huber is Sean, the Irish one. That's definitely Huber. Because he's just, what's going on, everybody? Molly. There we go. Molly. You're Molly. They do have a dog. Okay. There was a dog at camp. All right, sorry. Molly O'Shea. Damiani is Bill Williamson. Who is Dawn?
I don't know.
Who is Dawn? Oh, Dawn is Trelawney.
Professor Trelawney?
Don Lonnie. There's a guy named Trelawney, yeah, in it. But he's there. He's at camp sometimes. He's not. He comes in. He's got a nice mustache. He's all dressed to the nines. Who's Uncle? Who are we missing? Ian's got to be some. Oh, Ian's Sadie. Yeah, nobody's Uncle. I don't know.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob, yeah.
Well, are we going to talk about Harry Potter now?
No. What? God, I was so close to getting this done. So yeah, hopefully we've done everybody. Whenever I rattle off the allies' names, I always forget somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, Brad. Who could Brad be?
Arthur Morgan.
Brad might be Charles.
Who's Arthur Morgan in your group?
I felt mostly closely related to Charles. Charles is my favorite, especially by the end of that game.
You're Charles?
No, which gang I felt closely related to. Well, which character I feel closely related to? Dutch, obviously, is for myself. But
Dutch more than Morgan?
Yeah, because Dutch is the leader who's constantly asking for more money. Oh, maybe Brad is Arthur. Yeah, Brad's Arthur.
That's what I just suggested.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you said okay,
no, I suggested Brad could be Arthur Morgan because you hadn't said his name yet.
Brad's Arthur Morgan. We did it.
I'm gonna steal some of your sandwich bread and go eat a sandwich.
Okay.
But before I go, does anyone have any questions for me?
No, please don't do that. Please, I'm not even joking right now. Why would you do that?
Because
I can't show. You got page.
You said it's
13
the
or 14.
It's the last live Cup of Jones of the year.
It's not the last live Cup of Troop of the year. You got Instagram. You got your own Twitter. It's not hard to get a hold of you.
It's just better this way. I don't think they have any questions unless they're about Harry Potter.
They're totally gonna have questions, but there's a delay, so we got to sit and wait for them.
I'm gonna probably have a peanut butter and honey sandwich. That's what I'm in the mood for. I have been to the studio. It's sweet. Favorite Harry Potter character? You know, I've been giving it a lot of thought. People have asked me that quite a few times, and it's got to be Albus Dumbledore. But I have other favorites. Molly Weasley, that's a good character. McGonagall, very interesting character. Favorite Harry Potter book is the Half-Blood Prince, and the movie is Prisoner of Azkaban. The Simpsons parties are always fun. When am I getting my own show? You know, let's just write some letters to Netflix and Hulu and whatnot, because I want to be on television.
They might mean Easy A.
I know. Grindelwald was disappointing. No, I mean, the thing is, like, if I had my own show on Easy A, it would be a whole thing.
We got Spouse Quest.
Why is The Goblet of Fire the best Harry Potter movie?
It's Sean Clinton's favorite.
Well, I respect your opinion.
Lots of Grindelwald.
Grindelwald was not great. It was not great. There were a lot of problems. They tried to tell too many stories. They, like, Newt Scamander, he doesn't need to be there. I would prefer that they just did character study movies. So, like, they did a Newt Scamander's movie where he actually goes out and finds fantastic beasts. That would be a great movie. I would have watched that. And then they could have done a Dumbledore and Grindelwald movie. That would have been a great movie. I would have loved a McGonagall's backstory movie where we see her whole life. Like, I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities because they're trying to follow the same formula that they followed with the Harry Potter franchise, in my opinion, and I don't think it's working. Will I see them all? Of course I'll see them all. Ugh. Yes, you have Box Peak. I'm on Box Peak. And I'll do Fiasco Knots and I'll do whatever. I'll be guests. Let's see, what else? TV is dying. Invest in Easy A. Well, not streaming, not live streaming, and there's more content than ever. So, let's see, what else? I think that's it. Oh, wait, Amanda, the level of pleasure you get from 1 to 10 from doing Cup of Troop at Cup of Joe's expense. It's an 11. I usually I have a workout that I do on Thursday mornings, and I'll get the notification like Cup of Jones has gone live, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna jump on that stream. Thoughts on J.K. Rowling? She's very smart, and I am thankful to her for writing those books. I would need more of a specific question. Would I like a second dog for Sophie to play with? Sophie doesn't want a second dog. She has her cat friend, Norbert, and they love each other. All right, I think this is enough. We're hilarious together. You don't have a watch on.
It's a Chevy Chase joke.
Here's the thing. I'm going to just say it again, that I'm not a big fan of the Harry Potter movies. They're just fine. I'm all about the books. I'm currently listening to them all again, read by Jim Dale. It is like a religion for me, the books. So
no joke. She's in my presence. This is like the 7th or 8th time she's restarted the whole series.
They make me happy. They make me happy.
It makes me happy that they make you happy.
It makes me happy.
It makes me happy that you're
happy that I'm happy.
It makes me happy that you're that much of a nerd, because like I get that with Star Wars, where I'm just like, oh, I'm such a big Star Wars fan. They're like, oh, did you like Episode 8? I'm like, no. They're like, what? Like, I love. They're like, oh, you know, did you like the prequels? Like, no, I hate the prequels. Like, you know, it's and I love the Clone Wars show. Like, it's fun. It's fun to just like different things and be like, I'm so into this property that I have very strong opinions. It's not just that I love everything. Same with Disney. It's just like, oh, then you love that movie. Like, no.
Yeah, Mark Dalga, I also believe, not in the death of the author, I do believe that if it means what you think it is, what I think you mean. I don't like that term. It just makes me sad. But I do think after you've created something and you release it to the world, now you're saying, okay, you person who is reading or watching or playing the game, now it's your turn to interpret the art. And I think that that's something that artists struggle with a lot of the time is the like, if you make art in a vacuum, that's art for yourself. You can say whatever it is. You can edit it as many times, but as soon as it has other eyes, ears, experiences, it is shared art form. And it's something that I really like about doing live theater is I'm creating art with people. So I might say my lines and think I'm telling one story, and someone can come up to me after the show and say, I love this about your performance that I didn't even know was there, but that's because we're making something shared together. So I fully believe that she wrote those stories. I love that they're out there, but like now we get to say like what they mean to us. I don't like it when she comes out and says, no, this part really meant this. Like, I think, fine, it can be there if some fans like it, some fans don't. But to my mind, I feel like whatever's in the book is what we have to work with. So like Pottermore is a Harry Potter enhancing experience. Some people like it. I personally don't go to it because I want to go back to the text that she spent years of her life crafting to tell this specific story. I don't want the notes that she was like, you know, this might be interesting. Here, read this too. Now it's changing my story that I created as I read her books, and that sort of messes with that sacred space.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Remember me?
Are we doing a Harry Potter podcast now?
I thought it was really beautiful that Frank Oz recently, when everyone was like, Bert and Ernie are gay, he was like, no, they're not. And they're like, yeah, they are. And he was like, no, I created them. They're not. Like, they weren't when we did it. They weren't anytime I ever performed the characters. And then kind of went back on that. He was like, you know what? Who knows? You know, he's like, they wasn't my intention, but if that's how some people perceive it and that makes their lives better, that makes them more happy, great. I was like, yeah, Frank Oz. It's neat. It's neat having Frank kind of taking this outside look at the current status of the Muppets and the Sesame Street and all that stuff that's happening.
This gets a little heavy, but and then we'll answer what our houses are.
And then we'll finally get to that, and then we'll get to wrap the show up.
But I remember one time I was talking to my friend Kevin about the musical Into the Woods, and he goes, well, you know, that was about the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And I went, what? And it's one of my favorite musicals. And I looked at it again and I was like, oh, The Giant. That The Giant could happen to anyone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the people who remain are the ones that they're like, there is no happily ever after. This is life. And I was like, what an interesting interpretation. And I think that that's the gift of art, is that we get to invest in it. And I just think that that's just a beautiful exchange, and we're lucky as humans that we get to do that. Okay, what's your house, honey?
I aspire to be a Slytherin, but I'm sadly a Gryffindor.
I'm a Ravenclaw. That's why I answer so many questions.
Yeah, because you're a Ravenclaw.
Yeah, and I like to answer questions. Okay, bye. Amanda clearly has some stuff to say. She really needs an outlet. I have lots of outlets. Man, oh man. I talk all the time. Thanks for the bread, honey.
Not enough, apparently.
Should I do this on stream?
Yeah, can you crinkle that as much as you possibly can? Otto Mastonin, have you considered another donation stream for better equipment, other upgrades for the studio? We've talked about that. Zachary Jennings, knowing full well you're in the industry and less goes unnoticed by you, is this... Oh, sorry, my question, knowing full well you're in the industry and less goes unnoticed by you, is this. What are some of the most impactful games you've played that you might never have touched were it not for someone's recommendation? Now the room smells like bread. Okay, wheel yourself out. Okay, all right.
Bye.
I give her a hard time. I love that woman so much. You gonna close the door too?
Well, Sophie's out here in the sun. Should I close it or leave it open?
Sophie wasn't even outside. You're the one that brought her outside.
I know, but she likes it.
Okay.
She's under the desk.
No, right. She's just sniffing for food. Okay, fine.
Bye.
Now Sophie's here, everybody. Bloodborne. Bloodborne definitely changed my mind in terms of a lot of things, from software games, difficulty in games. That was definitely an eye-opening experience. The moment that I got hooked on Bloodborne. Never played Dark Souls Cup of Bread. Never played Dark Souls 3. And I'm tempted to play Dark Souls Remastered. Maybe just like picking that up on Switch. I might do that next year sometime if that gets super cheap. But in recent memory, that's one that definitely stands out. And I really enjoyed playing Dragon Quest XI. And you know what? I'm really enjoying playing Smash Brothers because there's a lot of, it's neat to be like, okay, these are the Xenoblade characters and these are the Fire Emblem characters. Got it. You know, it's neat to just kind of cement who these people are in my brain, and a lot of the stickers, a lot of the what?
I forgot my phone.
Oh God. A lot of the little tiny, you know, things that they reference in Nintendo's history in Smash Brothers are really good to know and fun. And a Nintendo console was my jam. I had an NES and an SNES. I did not have a Master System or a Genesis. I think I got a Genesis eventually right before the gen ended, but for most of it, I did not. I think I owned like 2 or 3 Genesis games. I think I got a discounted Genesis so I could get the Sega CD so I could play the Star Wars game that was on Sega CD or on 32X. I think I got like all this stuff like stack on each other. I think there was a Batmobile racing game for Sega CD that I had to pick up. But so it's, even though I didn't read Nintendo Power, I didn't play Metroid or Metal Gear, or like there's like a lot of NES games I missed out on that have then gone on to be these huge franchises. Kirby, like I missed a lot of this stuff. And so it's neat to have that game historically teach me a lot about things about this company that I love, that has made a lot of stuff over the years, a lot of it that I missed. At the same time, like when it gets to my jam, like Excitebike, it's like, yeah, that tune I know. Jack Goddard, should we be worried about a lot about the Square Enix studios? Seems like the last time they had a hit was Nier and Final Fantasy 15. Just Cause, Deus Ex, Tomb Raider all sound like they bombed hard, dropping Hitman. I'm certainly worried. Oh, and dropping Hitman. I'm certainly worried that we may see some Western studios on the chopping block. Jack, that's a hot take. I can't say you're wrong. I will see. I mean, you know, Tomb Raider might take a hiatus, but I could see Tomb Raider coming back. Tomb Raider has existed in a lot of different forms, so I could see Tomb Raider rebooting itself again, or even just doing like maybe like an adventure game or something, like a text adventure. I could see them being fine. Deus Ex, I don't think we're going to see for a while. And Just Cause 4 seemed to just happen. Just Cause 4 was just gonna happen. Like 4, like I'll expound upon this more in my review, but I talked about it in Frame Trap. Just Cause 4 clearly just stopped development. You can see Sophie wandering around in the background. They were just like, yeah, it's good enough. Like they clearly did not put any TLC into that as far as cleaning up bugs, cleaning up the visuals. They just kind of released it as is. They talked a lot about the new engine that's running everything, and like this game doesn't look good. And so, but I think it's probably gonna meet sales records or meet sales predictions if they made it so quickly. 3 years after Just Cause 3, a lot quicker than I thought they were going to, especially considering Avalanche is also working on Rage and other projects. So I think it's going to be a while before Deus Ex. I think we could see Tomb Raider come back. Hitman seems to be doing fine. It sucks that they lost it. And hopefully Kingdom Hearts does really well. Obviously, it's a Japanese studio, but waiting to see what Avengers does for that team. I said it before and I'll say it again, and everybody looked at me like, you're crazy, Jones. I would not be surprised if that Avenger game would get canceled. Dog Ending, I think a really cool game idea would be a Mario Maker 64, a 3D level creator with Mario 64 assets. Do you think this game is possible? And what are some potential challenges Nintendo might face if they decide to develop this title? I don't see that happening, and I think one of the major reasons why is, to me, the cool thing about Mario Maker is not the stuff that you can do, it's how easy it is to do. They realized that following your Disney Infinities and Minecrafts and Little Big Planets and a lot of these games that even Game Maker, RPG Maker, like a lot of these things that give you the elements so you can build stuff for Far Cry, so you can build stuff really quickly. It's still not quickly enough. Mario Maker, you can build a level so fast and it's so intuitive, and you can really see the big picture all at the same time. And I don't know if you watched the stream where I showed off my Resident Evil 2 map in Far Cry 5, but zooming back from that, it's a mess. Like you can see all of the elements, but it's really hard to get a sense of like exactly what's going on. And so I think it was just kind of the draw-in functionality of that game that really made it such a slam dunk, because you had a lot of people that maybe typically didn't build stuff in games before. They're like, I have to build this because it's so easy. And the very nature of like actually drawing things in, the fact that the notes every time you tap on the screen when you're adding elements do it in tune with the music. There's just so many little touches that they added in that game that make it so charming, that I think would go away and make the experience of building a level much more like current level editors, which are fun, and I think people take advantage of the creativity that produces, the output that comes from that specific sect of each given community. But I don't think that group of each community is substantial. I'm really curious to see how Dreams does, to see how much people can really enjoy coming in and playing other people's stuff. If there's a percentage, and if Media Molecule is actually very upfront with what that percentage is of their different types of players, the people who make the elements, the people who build using those elements, and the people who just play all of the stuff that those other two parties build. Yeah, I think Mario Maker's coming to Switch, but I think that's it. DJ, and they'll probably add like a skin or two that they didn't. You'll probably be able to customize a little bit more, add some more elements, but that's it. 3 more questions. DJ Treacle, have you watched many British TV shows? Specifically, have you ever watched Red Dwarf or Spaced? The former is a long-running sci-fi comedy. The latter was done by Edgar Wright of Shaun of the Dead fame, and it contains lots of video game and movie references I'm sure you will enjoy. I have watched more Red Dwarf than I've watched of Spaced. I have watched Spaced. I knew what Spaced was. I knew it existed. I didn't watch it until years later after I'd already seen Shaun of the Dead and a lot of Edgar Wright stuff. And I watched Red Dwarf as a kid. It was like, what in the world is this craziness? So yeah, I'm familiar with Red Dwarf. It's been a long, long time since I watched it. And there's all sorts of other British TV shows that I've watched over the years that I really like. I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. I missed some of the Capaldi stuff, but I'm back in it now, and we're watching the current season. I think we're up to like episode 5 of this season. And I am a big fan of Fawlty Towers. I'm a big fan of what's the Dark Shadows. I'm a big fan of Mr. Bean. I'm a big fan of Monty Python, of course. I'm trying to think of other fun British television shows. Oh, and a big fan of Absolutely Fabulous. That's British, right? That's not like Australian or something. Is that British? So yeah, British TV rules. And Amanda just recently got me hooked on the Great British Baking Show, which is on Netflix. She just watched season 6, and I would come in and be like, "Oh, season 6," and like, "Okay," and just like, "Oh, where's that guy with the mustache?" She's like, "Oh, he got kicked off." Like, "Oh," and then like I come in later and like, "Oh, no, that cake fell over. How did that happen?" And she's like, "Just watch the episode." And then like by the end of the season, I'm like, "I gotta watch the finale because now I'm all wrapped up," and watching that. But I think just being British makes things better. I think British comedians are funnier. I think British shows are more clever. I think just sounding British just kind of adds this level of competency to everything. Jeremy Ferris, all I need is Brandon Jones's hot take on Epic Mickey on Wii. I think it's cool. I think Epic Mickey, unfortunately, is not what everyone thought it was going to be. I think that series kind of shot itself in the foot by releasing concept art before we saw anything else, because they released concept art and everyone was like, and it was just this like Mickey that was like melting upwards. So it's just like all this paint that was just being splashed over everything. And then he was like looking at this big dark world and was like, "Oh no, this game looks amazing." And then it turned out to be kind of a fun platformer with some cameos. And you're like, whoa, wait, this looked like a crazy dark spin on Mickey. And Mickey's done dark things in the past, but this just looked so much more moody and it was really cool, because after Kingdom Hearts, where I was like, "Oh, this is fascinating. I love Square Enix. I love Disney. I'm excited to see these franchises work together." And then they didn't really. Like, it was kind of mostly about Sora and crew. And so I was, like, it'd be great to see Mickey go on some really crazy adventure that was about him and about his, the characters that surround him in relation to him. It seems like, Mickey's kind of an afterthought when you actually get into Donald. Like, Donald and Goofy are really the stars of Kingdom Hearts. And it's just like, oh yeah, Mickey's back there. He shows up every now and then. But I long for that, the return. We had a lot of really great Mickey games on Genesis and Super Nintendo, and it'd be great to maybe get back there, and have Mickey reclaim that throne. But having it be exclusive to the Wii, having the motion stuff be like, all right, and then just ultimately having it not meet up to what people's expectations were when looking at that first image, it was a bummer. But I am incredibly grateful to Epic Mickey 2, because I went to an Epic Mickey 2 event at Disneyland, and that was the first time I ever got to go into Walt's apartment. And so I am incredibly grateful to Warren Spector and the team of putting Epic Mickey 2 together and having that event so that I could go and check out Walt's apartment, because I've been in there one other time since, but that's my Graceland. That was a big deal for me. Chris Irely, last question. Since you have been in games journalism for a long time, I was wondering, what are some of your personal thoughts about the industry as a whole? Like, what are some personal criticisms you have about game journalism you hope to see change? And vice versa, what do you personally feel like the industry has gotten right over the years? I think the industry continues to innovate, for better or worse. I think we definitely represent a new crazy way to do things. It's neat to see streaming kind of take over, and obviously people, can bake on streams. They can build, furniture on streams. They can do cosplay on streams. There's a lot of things you can do on streams that have nothing to do with video games. But streaming games obviously is a major part of that industry, and it's neat to see streaming in general, a lot of the industry trying to catch up to it. Obviously, the film and television industry is now going strong in the streaming department, and games are trying to catch up. But streaming games and that entertainment, a lot of kids recognize it, and a lot of their parents work at media companies that are scratching their heads, and their kids are like on their phones on YouTube, like, makes sense to me. I'm getting all this content through these specific people playing these games or talking about them or making fun videos. So I do think it is exciting. I think that's part of the reason why, even though I'm a film major, and even though I have long in my life aspired to write for television and film and be involved in that, and some of the stuff that we do at Easy Allies kind of echoes that enthusiasm. But it's so hard to separate myself from this industry because it's so young and so exciting. It's changing so much. When I joined it in the basically the beginning of this century, because I graduated from college in 2001, I was like, man, I'm so late. Like, games have been in production since the 70s. I was a big fan of Tech TV and G4 and GameSpot and IGN, and so I was like familiar with all these people who had been doing this media long before I had been doing it. And so I'm like, what kind of impact am I going to have? And then 15 years later, I meet people that are like, hey, Game Trailers is a big influence on me, you know, before I started doing the stuff that I'm doing. I'm like, that's crazy to think of, because I thought nothing else could be innovated by the time that I entered into the industry. And so seeing how much it had changed before I came in, seeing how much it's changed since I've been in the industry, it's just such a fascinating comet to have lassoed and be, you know, holding onto that rope, flying through the galaxy, and just all the exciting things that happen because we're just around stuff. Like being able to have reactions be a part of our job is insane. That we can have events and that we can go to these events or watch these events with you, comment on things, and that you care about our analysis, that you find our reactions worthwhile. It was neat being at the Game Awards and not seeing Ben's reaction to the announcement that Joker was going to be in Smash Brothers, and then getting to do that after the fact. And I was like, this is how it works. This is what people think when they're like, oh, I missed that live event, but I want to see that reaction. So did I. I was like, I want to see Ben react to that. So it was neat to be like, tapping in a little bit into how our audience feels about the stuff that we produce and how that has value for them. That's all the positive stuff. The negative stuff is clearly the toxicity. And I think that's really frustrating on one hand, but on the other hand, and I understand for a lot of people that are victim to a lot of that stuff, that I am not most of the time. And so this is very comfortable for somebody like me to say, but I hope, is my hope of hopes, that the gaming industry is somewhat of a beacon for some sort of middle ground that we can find over these issues. And I say that because I think there's a lot of people that speak online about issues and are very divided and aggressively so, and can say very hurtful things to other people that they either don't understand or have difficulty communicating with. And then at the same time, without them knowing, those people also go online and play Soul Calibur together. You know, so like I think these things are happening and a lot of us aren't aware. And I think even though it feels like people are getting meaner and meaner and meaner, I think it's more people are joining social media, more people are commenting on things, more people are feeling the freedom to express themselves the way that they want to on social media and on the YouTube and the world. And it's messy, it's confusing. It's, you know, people are seeing things they've never seen before and they don't understand them. They don't know how to react. People are saying things and they don't know how that's going to be perceived by other people, and they're shocked by the way that people interpret things that they say. And I think it's a process, and I hope that games is going to be one of the first communities through the door of kind of figure, we got this figured out, kind of like we have video figured out. You know, you see a lot of these older companies. We had a thing with politicians. We're like, Amazon, are you tracking my iPhone? And they're like, no, we don't make the iPhone, dummy. You know, it's like, I think almost 99% of the audience of Easy Allies would not make that mistake. And so I think we have a little bit of a head start. You know, in popular media, I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of understanding technology and its impact, and kind of potentially seeing the whole picture, even though it doesn't seem like people do that a lot. I think we are getting better at that. But until we get through that gate, until we figure it out, a lot of people are subject to a lot of abuse online, and it sucks. And I think a lot of people feel comfortable being, you know, just kind of watering the absolute worst part of their selves and watching it grow. And because they can't necessarily see the impact in people that they care about being hurt by those things. And so the trick is trying to figure that out. The trick is trying to help people understand what is happening. I'm learning that process throughout Easy Allies, the content that we produce, the things that I say, the promises that I make, to see how they impact you and the stuff that you like versus the stuff that you don't. So there you go. That was kind of an editorial at the end there. Definitely a loaded question. That, and I hate leaks. Stop leaking stuff. I just hate the leaks so much. I hate it when a company works so hard on an IP and for no reason other than just somebody knows about it, which happens in every instance. Anytime you hear an announcement, people knew about that didn't work at that company. They did. Like in this industry, people also knew, and they just decided not to tell people. So when you see somebody that's like, I leaked this, like that's not the only person with the information. That's just the person that doesn't care if they piss that company off. And people that don't care if they piss people off can grind my gears sometimes. So there we go. Leaks, toxicity. I'd be happy if there wasn't any of it. Takeaways: live Q&A cleanup crew, make it right award, and possibly bring back voting for stuff along the other things that we talked about. But those are my hot takes, along with many hot takes from my wife. Lots of personal hot takes. Hopefully that emphasizes the Jones part of the Cup of Jones. That part of this is just my dumb opinions. Obviously, those opinions are reserved solely for myself, despite anything that Blood might have mentioned in the comments that represents his opinions as well. We have an episode of Frame Trap coming in today. We shot a bunch of tabletop the other day, 4 episodes in one day, which we hadn't done in a long time. And we have, again, some easy updates in the can coming up. A lot of stuff pre-produced because a lot of the allies are already gone. They're already on vacation. I won't see a lot of those people until 2019, and I won't see you until 2019. This is it. We wrapped it up. I'm going to be recording a couple more things that I will put up over the holidays. I have my Just Cause review that will hopefully go up later today, most likely tomorrow, and that you can check out because I will be doing lots of studio preparation stuff. Sophie is staring at the back door and is like, I don't understand why this door is closed. I don't even know why I'm in here. Where did Mom go? So the first half was cup. Yeah, see, the cup is the business. The of is the sips from the drink, and the Jones is the editorial part. That's the division. That's how the shows go. The of is like the silent parts, like right here. That's the of, the small font, the bridge. You know what I mean? The glue, the threads, circular, goes around. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for 2018. Sent me the thumbnail for Just Cause. Thanks, Blood. Getting some work done. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope you had a great year. I hope if you didn't have a great year, you have some time to relax. I hope if there's any games that you missed out on, you get a chance to play them. I will be playing Super Smash Bros., Red Dead Online, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, maybe a little bit of Fortnite. I haven't played Fortnite in a long time, and a lot of that holiday stuff looks really jolly. I always love popping back into Grand Theft Auto Online over the holidays because they make it snow everywhere. It's fun to go back to the snow. I just will say one last thing, and I want to just apologize in advance for any kind of weirdness happening within EZA in terms of shows going dark or maybe skipping a week. I know the Easy Allies podcast is going to skip a week, which I don't know if has ever happened. And so there's a lot of moving that we have to do, moving into this new studio, and some of the things might skip a beat. That might affect you not only in missing that show, but it might frustrate you because we might not be 100% clear in what's actually happening. And so that's why I ask you to stay tuned to our Twitch channel, our group streams, and especially Cup of Jones for those official announcements. If you hear us, one ally, say something on one stream, or you hear us maybe suggest something on a podcast or whatnot, don't necessarily take that as fact. Wait until the official announcements to know how the rollout into our new studio is going to go, because we haven't really broke ground on it yet. We haven't really started building stuff and started bringing in equipment. So that stuff has yet to happen. But man, am I excited to do it. And we did it. We did it in 2018, everybody. We got a studio. We are going to be 3 years old in March. And we're going to be 4 years old in March. It's going to be a 3rd anniversary in March. And before we actually, no, we're going to be 3 years old. Sorry. I always make that mistake. I've made that mistake before. It's such a good feeling, and so exciting to, even though it's frustrating to leave on this break and then come back and scramble to try to get this office together. It's really starting to start 2019. If you think about it, the biggest change you could have asked for this operation. We're going to begin 2019 in our own space, with our own LLC and its own checking account and its own finances. Everything will be financially independent in terms of myself, and we will all be completely equal partners, truly for the first time in EZA. And we'll have a new studio to play with to boot. So it'll be a really exciting year. And I ask again for your patience and waiting till all of that stuff gets ironed out. But keep those expectations up in terms of the fun stuff that we can do in the studio. Keep those ideas coming as far as stuff that you would like to see. And of course, the comments coming, personal and business and otherwise, on Cup of Jones, even though I will not answer them until the new year. If any Cup of Jones posts go up, feel free to put questions or comments down there, and then we'll just have a big old 5-hour episode whenever I come back in 2019. But I feel bad. This is really fun. I really enjoy spending time with you and doing this every Thursday. But that is it. We got to wrap it up. I will see you next year, as long as I can find this mouse, not mouth. I got to find the mouth with my cup. Smooth. Cheers, everybody.